The battle had reached its end, a bloody play where the defeated could only swallow their bitterness amidst a sea of fire and corpses. Ken later, the Emperor's royal guard, a lifelong slave, had fallen. He had exhausted all his strength to protect that mad emperor, the one who made a pact with a demon. Will history remember him as a knight loyal to the very end, or just a brain-dead fool who couldn't grasp the changing times? To me, none of it felt right. As Ken's soul lingered on the edge of life and death, a voice screamed right in his face. It was as if it wanted to tear his eardrums. Why in the world did you draw your sword at the last minute? Why not just disappear cleanly from everyone's memory? It was Halo Reston, the leader of the rebel army, once his closest friend. But in response to Halo's rage, Ken could only manage a twisted smile, the smile of a man happy with his choice. I lived for 29 years as an orphan, and this is my choice. Don't look for a fight, young Master Duke. Ken's vision began to fade. Halo's scream sounded like a bell echoing from a deep abyss, growing fainter and fainter. You could have run away. Why did you choose this path? Halo shrieked his name, tears streaming down like rain. Ken, wake up, you bastard! But it was all too late. Ken was gone. He left behind Halo's blood-boiling regret. Ken. The truth is, before he left, he had cried, "That damn Ken." In the realm of eternity, a light footstep approached. He walked unconsciously, wondering, where am I? Amidst an endless galactic space, he mused, so this is what death is like. A satisfied smile appeared on Ken's face. Turns out freedom isn't all that great. Oh well, I'm sure that guy will manage just fine. All right then. In that case, this thing they call freedom, I'll enjoy it to my heart's content. A blue light suddenly exploded from a spatial rift, catching Ken's attention. A mystical white mist billowed out from it, drawing closer. Then it enveloped him. A thin but powerful stream of light signaled an earth-shattering change. Ken wondered, what the hell is this? He slowly opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was the face of a man with bright golden hair, warmly welcoming him. The baby's been born safe and sound. Then he heard the voice of his new body, infantile but clear. Young Master Kazone, father, would you like to hold him? Rough hands reached out to take him. The little guy isn't crying. What a good boy. Ken, now Kazone, felt his blood boil, wondering, what the hell is happening? The man blessed him. Grow up strong and healthy, my youngest grandchild. Kazone recognized him in an instant. Halo. Even though he was old and his face was wrinkled like a monkey's, it was definitely him. Amidst the joyous atmosphere that made everyone else giddy, the first cry of another child rang out. Oh dear, did I make him cry? Kazone still couldn't understand what the hell was going on. No. What is all this? Curious, he guessed, am I Halo's grandson in this bustling city? An important history was being recorded, and so the night Ken later died alongside the Demon Emperor 45 years ago, though he couldn't stop his master from walking a ruinous path. As a symbol of loyalty who stayed by his master's side until the very end, his image is still remembered to this day. Yes, this is the latest opinion from our Society of Modern History. What do you think, young master? Kazone rested his chin on his hand, smiled slyly, and asked back. So, what is your opinion, teacher? David was taken aback. Well, sir, he replied, based on my own understanding, I believe the Grand Duke must have wanted to restore the honor of his old friend. After all, the fact that Grand Duke Halo and Sir Ken were once friends is quite famous. He sat up with a flippant attitude. Is that so? David looked bewildered. What do you mean, my lord? He answered, his brows furrowed in thought. That's what you think. My grandfather probably still holds a grudge against that dead friend of his. That's why. He deliberately gilded that old friend's name. This young boy is Kazone Reston, 10 years old, the third son of Count F.L. Halo Reston's eldest. David's face went pale, stunned by the assertive answer. What is this kid saying? He asked again. What could you possibly mean by that? Kazone guessed Halo's intentions from the past. Grandfather didn't agree with Ken's choice to die. Instead of walking the path of revolution with him, despite Ken wanting a quiet death, not the glory of a hero, David muttered to himself, analyzing it. A quiet death, you say? Well, there are records stating that the duel between the Grand Duke and Ken Ladder ended too quickly, unworthy of two opponents of equal skill. It's just a hypothesis, of course. But if Ken chose death instead of fighting his friend to the end or joining the revolution, that is a plausible argument. He flipped through the book's pages, probing, "Isn't that right?" He couldn't believe the boy's mind was so sharp. A boy who's only 10 years old can make a deduction like that. But if I agree with such an outrageous idea, I am afraid the Duchy's knights would have my head for disrespect. Thinking that he found it difficult to answer, David could only stammer an excuse. I never thought about that aspect." He grinned, enjoying the other man's confusion. He smirked, correcting himself. "Just kidding. It's just a joke." Why was he so surprised? After the lesson ended, he walked away thinking to himself, "My name is now Carzone Reston, as everyone can see. I am the youngest grandson of Duke Reston, at least for now." It took me a while to grasp the situation, but in conclusion, I've been reincarnated as the grandson of Harlow Reston. That man truly has no idea how to read a room. You dare make a hero out of me. Some things should be understood without me having to say them. Kazan saw Theo's vacant expression. That man, Theo Harley's youngest son, is my father. Kazan coughed to snap Theo out of it. Hearing the cough, Theo turned to greet him. "Oh, Kazan, are you done with your studies?" Kazan affirmed and asked Theo, "Yes, father. Were you praying again?" "So you're still worried, aren't you, about your awakening ceremony?" Theo said dejectedly, his words hard to understand. "I'm sorry, my son." Kazan asked curiously, "For what?" Theo then told him the story. "As you know, unlike your two uncles, I was unable to awaken my magical powers. Because of that, I worry that my burden has been passed on to you." Kazan stepped forward, put a hand on Theo's shoulder, and called out, "Father, no matter what anyone says, you're the greatest father in the world to me." Theo's face turned beet red. "Oh, Kazan, you're the most wonderful son a father could have." Theo pinched his cheek, making him blush. "Oh, my dear son. Come on, let's go have dinner." "Is there anything you want to eat?" Kazan answered firmly. "Meat, of course." That night, the magic stone floated in midair. He caught it, thinking to himself, "The awakening. Huh." His eyes gleamed as the past rushed back to him. The awakening ceremony. "What is that?" Harlow had replied at the time. "It's our family's ritual, nothing more than an old, outdated tradition. A ritual to unlock the latent magical power within the body. You're going to dismiss it as worthless and ignore it, so you can be born with the silver spoon when it comes to magic too. Pardon me, but I couldn't care less about that nonsense." Harlow explained in more detail, his deep, powerful voice carrying a hint of mystery. Not everyone can awaken their magic. And even if they do, it doesn't mean they're qualified to become the head of the family. Furthermore, there is a terrible secret that is only passed down to the family head. From one generation to the next. Kazan's eyes lit up. A secret like a great treasure perhaps, or the location of a grimoire that can grant wishes. Harlow slung his sword over his shoulder, grinning with excitement. "Well, now starting to get interested, are you?" He averted his gaze, trying to change the subject while feigning indifference. Maybe a little. Like if it means I can live peacefully in some corner. Where no one will ever find me." Harlow's contemptuous sigh made his blood boil. "Damn it. Are you laughing at your friend's humble dream? I'm holding a weapon here, you know." Suddenly, Harlow blurted out, piquing his curiosity as his eyes flashed. "All right. Someday, when I become the head of the family, I'll let you in on that secret." Returning to the present, Kazone sat quietly by the window. So, the ritual to awaken magical power is the awakening ceremony. His whole body began to glow. "Father, you don't need to worry." Magic seemed to explode from within his body as Kazan's eyes shone with determination. "Yes, I completed the magical awakening ceremony a long time ago. The next morning, at the train station, people were bustling about. Someone said, 'Isn't it amazing?' The other replied, 'Yes, this is my first time on a train.' Romeo briefly explained to him many of the techniques used to build this train, and were able to be commercialized thanks to your father's direct funding." Kazan said excitedly, "I knew it." Theo, a little embarrassed, scratched his head and gave a wry smile. "My dear, you even told him that?" She winked at him. "Even though your father says that. It's actually something wonderful." "Yes, I know. I completely agree. Of course, I'm truly proud of my father. It's the truth. This man may not have been able to awaken his magic, but he is an extraordinary person able to provide for 30% of the duchy's finances all by himself. A father completely devoted to his family, along with a benevolent mother. They are truly the perfect parents. On the way, the sky suddenly darkened. The train sped up, heading towards its destination. Inside the cabin, he stared blankly out the window. Suddenly, Kazan saw something that piqued his curiosity. It was a large, beautiful, and sturdy castle. Kazan guessed that must be the Reston main estate. This gloomy-looking place is Azure's Sea Castle. He narrowed his eyes, thinking, that's where he lives. He thought of his solemn demeanor. Harlow Reston. And Ken now in Kazan's body felt a surge of intense will. He smirked, a wicked, amused smile spreading across his face. You dare. You're going to have a real headache. Seeing Kazan's strange expression, Theo tilted his head in confusion. He suddenly saw something strange. A mysterious aura exuded from Ken's form. He decided then and there, I'll make you suffer. This youngest grandson of yours is going to give you a massive headache. And now in this child's body, he declared, the most rebellious member of the Reston family. He smirked, his eyes filled with excitement. Just you wait, Harlow. The train continued to roll onward amidst the change. Your adorable youngest grandson is here. The speeding train finally pulled into the station. Kachin stepped leisurely out of the car, followed by a group of servants carrying the luggage. A man who was already waiting bowed respectfully. You've arrived, third young master. It's been a long time. Theo politely raised his hand in greeting. It's been a year, hasn't it? Are you still well, Henry? Henry replied gracefully, a polite smile on his lips. Thanks to the Duke's blessing, I am always well. Kayan's sharp gaze briefly noticed the Sea Serpent Knights standing behind Henry. At the same time, they had also noticed him. The Sea Serpent Knight order, huh? The group huddled together with serious expressions, whispering amongst themselves, but their eyes were still glued to him. Could it be? They've already realized I've awakened my mana. As expected, he thought to himself. They're completely different from the knights at my family's domain. Kajin thought of his best friend from his past life, who was now his grandfather. News of this will reach his ears soon enough. But that's fine. Henry led the way for everyone. Well then, let's get going. I will take you to the main castle. Theo stepped forward with a suitcase. All right, let's go. In a magnificent, splendid room, a maid spoke respectfully. The Count has instructed you to wait here while he goes. To greet the clan elders, if you need anything, sir, please feel free to call for us. He answered calmly, thank you. Kajun looked around, marveling, not even noticing the door behind him opening. This is just a reception room. It's huge. He admired the magnificent view inside the castle. It's so boring here. I should have asked to be taken to the library. Suddenly, an arrogant laugh rang out. It was filled with contempt. The boy with his arms crossed spoke in a mocking tone. You just got back to the family, and you're already asking for the library. You really are the bookworm the rumors say you are, Leo. That son of a bitch smirked sarcastically, his expression filled with utter contempt. Then again, being your father's bloodline, the probability of you awakening your mana is extremely low, so at least you have to study. But if you want to go crazy trying to earn money, like the servants, then you should just follow your father's example. Cajun remained silent, his face grim. He clenched his fists and walked straight towards him. Seeing this, Leo jumped back. What is it? Leo was seething, veins bulging on his mana-filled hands, ready for a fight. Are you looking to die? Fine. In that case, I'll use my mana to teach you a lesson. Kayan's eyes blazed with killing intent, like he wanted to eat the pig-faced bastard in front of him alive. So this family is raising a spoiled brat. Who's going to ruin them? Leo trembled before his overwhelming presence. What? His face went pale as he cautiously backed away. Don't tell me. How can you? Leo screamed in horror, the blood rushing to his head. Impossible! When did you awaken your mana? But I never heard my father mention it. He smiled smugly, his entire body enveloped by a dense aura of mana. Of course not. Even my own father doesn't know about it. Cajun changed the subject, his tone cold. Anyway, let's move on from that. What's important now is... He unexpectedly flashed a friendly-looking smile, gesturing with his hand like a demon grinning wickedly. Our family doesn't need two prodigal sons, right, cousin? I'll be taking over that role now, so why don't you just step aside? Hearing this, Leo backed away in fear, stammering, What in the world are you talking about? Cajun was now like a demon bearing its fangs and claws right in front of him. In short, prepare to get your ass kicked. In another room, 4 men were gathered. So he's awakened, has he? The man rested his chin on his hand. I see. Raphael crossed his arms and turned to reproach him, his eyes radiating killing intent. He awakened his mana and didn't even report it to the main family. Is there some ulterior motive here, second young master of the Reston family? Raphael Reston's face was contorted in a scowl. Felix looked doubtful. Impossible. I didn't know either. Theo Reston, the first young master of the Reston family, said, trying to calm the atmosphere. Don't make wild guesses, Raphael, since Theo hasn't awakened his mana. It's understandable that he wouldn't have noticed it, he grumbled, grinding his teeth in frustration. This is ridiculous. Suddenly, a servant burst through the door in a panic. Head butler, sir, please come quickly. Henry slowly turned his gaze sharp. What happened? The servant's face was pale as he stammered. It's... All 3 brothers turned simultaneously as the man pointed towards the room. The two young masters. Raphael strode in, his face dark and radiating killing intent. Theo ran in after him, trying to calm him down. Brother, I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. He stopped dead, his eyes widening in shock and veins bulging on his forehead. Before him, his own son was lying on the sofa, his face swollen from a beating. Keijon turned his head. Hello, uncle. He bowed politely. Before he could finish, a large hand shot out. Raphael furiously lifted him into the air, yelling, You disrespectful brat! How dare you! Raphael raised a fist, ready to brawl. What the hell were you thinking, pulling a stunt like this? Theo rushed over to stop him. Brother, Keijon explained, and his words brought everyone to a halt. Yes, Leo insulted my father. He radiated a dignified aura as he retorted. May I ask, uncle, if you were in my shoes, could you have stood for it? Hearing this only enraged Raphael further. This little punk dares to make up lies now. Theo placed a hand on his shoulder to stop him. Brother, please, that's enough. He gritted his teeth. Shut your mouth. Theo, in the end, this is all your fault for not educating him properly. Theo was flustered by that. Henry appeared just in time to cut off the argument. Please, everyone, stop. He calmly relayed the master's words, saying he would pass judgment himself. Theo gritted his teeth and pulled Kazone back. You heard him, didn't you? Let go. Raphael clicked his tongue. Damn it. A servant carried Leo away. Theo helped Kazone adjust his collar. Are you all right, son? Kazone replied obediently. Yes, father, I'm fine. Henry turned away. Well, then let's go. Raphael didn't forget to look back and glare. Theo helplessly patted Keijon's shoulder. Come on, son. He frowned. Yes, father. They strode down the hallway. Ha-lo, the man smirked, his hands resting on the table. He radiated the authority of a superior. So what reason did you have for causing trouble the moment you arrived at the castle? Theo gestured, trying to explain father this matter. He was cut off. I am not asking you, Theo. Ha-lo made his position clear. I want to hear the answer from your son's own mouth. I know he is not one to act rashly without considering the consequences. There must be a reason. Explain it clearly. Kazone judged silently. So he wants to hear the reason first, even if he's going to punish me. Is he pretending to be lenient? He didn't hesitate and said it plainly, because Leo insulted my father. But Raphael was fuming. Nonsense, can't you just tell the truth? He slammed his hand on the table, shouting, Silence, Raphael, you dare raise your voice in my presence. Seeing his father's anger, he knew to stop. I apologize, father. Ha-lo changed the subject. We simply need to call Leo here to verify this. Henry, is Leo's treatment complete? Yes. He bowed respectfully. Yes, my lord. I will bring him to the study. Ha-lo turned to look at Keijon, his gaze sharp. There is one more thing I want to ask you. As if he had already predicted it, he answered confidently. If you're asking about my mana, I awakened 3 years ago. This statement made everyone in the room gasp in astonishment. 3 years? Ha-lo was very pleased, but still had questions. Then why is it that until now, not even your own father was aware of it? This boy awakened on his own 3 years ago. He explained, At first I discovered it while reading a book. It was only later that I learned it was mana. At this he couldn't hide his curiosity. And then... He scratched his head, laughing sheepishly. I just wanted to keep it a secret. It's more fun when you have a secret, you know. The knights in our domain didn't have a clue either, which made it even more fun. Ha Lo clasped his hands, feeling a bit let down. So, it's as simple as that. Kazone maintained his childlike expression and giggled. Yep! A servant pushed the door open to announce, Sir Leo has arrived. Leo walked in, his face almost completely covered in bandages. Ha Lo asked Leo, You said Kazone insulted his youngest uncle. Is that true? All eyes in the room turned to him, making Leo flustered. Well, about that. He seized the opportunity. Yes, I apologize, my lord, even though Leo insulted my father, calling him a vile, money-grubbing man. He who has no right of succession, yet remains arrogant, conceited, talentless, and useless. Leo flinched. Kazone continued, I still shouldn't have hit him. I have made a terrible mistake. This whole display made Leo tremble in fear. He hadn't said anything nearly that bad. He was horrified, snot dripping from his nose, his face pale as a sheet. He turned to look, his hand clenched into a threatening fist that terrified Leo, but Ha Lo calmly asked about Kazone's words. Is what he said true, Leo? He didn't dare to disagree and quickly agreed. Yes, that's right. Ha Lo grunted. I see. For now, since the awakening ceremony is tomorrow, I will postpone punishment for you both. At night, the castle was still brightly lit. That is all for today. All of you are dismissed. Go and get some rest. Outside the window, voices echoed. Henry, what do you make of that son of Theo's? Henry replied, From what I can see, there are quite a few points about him that could interest you, my lord. Ha Lo agreed. Interesting, isn't he? The boy awakened on his own 3 years ago and managed to keep it a complete secret until now. Ha Lo raised his wine glass. Moreover, he subtly cast doubt on the skills of the knights. The knights I sent to Theo's domain. It's as if he was implying that I look down on Theo. Henry sounded helpless. I believe you may be overthinking it, my lord. My lord. He took a sip of wine. I hope so. But there is something different about that boy. Ha Lo set his glass down. If he truly is special, then we will find out tomorrow. He stood up. Just awakening his mana isn't everything. Ha Lo glanced out the window. But the important thing is whether or not he can complete the ritual tomorrow smoothly. And if he succeeds, what will he gain from it? The bright moonlight shone upon the castle. I am truly very curious. Night fell. In the deserted forest, something rushed towards a source of light. It approached a pillar in the middle of the woods, a stone slab that emitted a mystical blue light. Night enveloped Azure Sea City, and the entire forest fell into absolute silence. Halon was in the lead, followed by his subordinates and his descendants. As he followed closely, Kazone curiously observed his surroundings. The Western family. He could easily see the killing intent radiating from them. Even though they had withdrawn from political affairs, he could clearly sense that every single one of them was a top-tier master. Supreme Masters. Kazan continued to scrutinize the members, the eldest son of the Western family with his daughter Leon, and also Duke Raphael with his son Leo. He then smirked to himself. The whole family is here. It's as crowded and noisy as a marketplace. But this must be more important than I thought. Everyone stopped in front of a large stone. The surrounding mana was radiating more densely than before. A blinding flash of light. He quickly recognized what this was. As Halo took out the necklace, he spoke, So that's the Blood Oath Stone. Let's begin the ritual. He slowly explained to them, When you step through the rift opened by the Oath Stone, you will see a world that this stone has chosen just for you. Theo was getting quite impatient. While Kazone listened intently, they say each person sees a different world through the Oath Stone. The ritual only ends when you use the weapon you acquire there to destroy it. The world! After the old man finished speaking, he politely nodded. Yes, grandfather. Halo's gaze never left him, and it was now filled with an even deeper meaning. Then he brought the pendant close to the Oath Stone. Good. Stay strong. The moment their surfaces touched, a magical reaction erupted from the stone pedestal, shooting straight up and creating a barrier of power around them that grew ever stronger. It grew more and more powerful, standing out in the middle of the forest. Theo and Kezone slowly opened their eyes, stunned by the brilliant light before them. Halo stood before the gate and asked, What are you waiting for? Are you scared, son? Theo asked Kazone with a worried gaze. Kazone, are you really all right? He immediately touched his father's hand to reassure him. "I'm fine, father. I'll be back soon." With that confidence, he stepped forward. "I have to use a weapon from that place to destroy the world." The corner of his lip curled into a smug smile. "Too easy." His body slowly passed through the spatial gate. "After all, destruction is my specialty." Just before he entered, Halo suddenly showed great anticipation. "Kazone, overcome your fear." He glanced back at the old man confused. "Overcome my fear." After he stepped inside, the gate immediately closed on its own. He was quickly transported to a place that was completely unfamiliar. The radiating heat and the crimson glow of fire left him stunned. This place is that desolate scene replaying right before my eyes again. The confused young man walked along the path. "Why, over there, a few soldiers were faintly breathing, leaning against the wall. Show me the memories of this place." His mood sank. "Do you want me to feel guilty for my comrades' unjust deaths?" As he looked up, he saw a faint ray of light from the door of the main hall, leading to the throne. At the same time, a very familiar voice echoed, "A cruel, desolate world, O child of the blue wolf." Behind the door, everything suddenly turned a brilliant red. "The time of the covenant has come. I am here to fulfill the promise made to your ancestors." Polished shoes stepped lightly on the still wet bloodstains on the stairs. "You are..." Kazone's eyes widened as he stared at the mysterious figure and exclaimed, "The Demon Clan!" That being continued to speak, "The blood in your veins cannot be violated by a lesser demon." He used his strength to push open the large door. "Overcome your fear and ascend to the throne. What you desire lies there." The first thing that caught his eye was the deep red floor. "Long time no see." Not far away, a few weak rays of light shone in. There was something on the throne. The very throne that the Mad Emperor had risked his life to protect, even making a deal with demons. As he walked towards it, the scenery behind him gradually narrowed as if being devoured by the throne's decay. "To think my comrades and I had to die for this rotten throne. It feels like I'm walking on the corpses of my brothers." The voice of the Demon Clan spoke again, its tone hoarse and full of authority. "O child bearing the blessing of the cold northern sea, though your soul has gone astray." It congratulated Kazone. "You finally made it here. On behalf of the Blue Clan, I welcome you." His face suddenly darkened. A memory of Ken from before was brought back. "The sword is your weapon." He too was incredibly surprised. It was the beloved sword once gifted to him by the Emperor. The blood-sealed demon sword. The demon urged him, "Channel your magic into it." Kazone, stunned, replied, his face pale as if his blood pressure had dropped. "What? That's a demon sword. It will devour its user's soul." The other voice calmly reassured him, as if all his worries were meaningless. "The evil dwelling within it was purged by your grandfather long ago. What you see is merely the twisted demonic form it left behind. Awaken the sword, boy." It insisted, its tone challenging. "Only you can awaken it." Despite this, Kazone still hesitated for a moment. "Will it be all right if I touch the sword?" His palm tightened. "What if I become an emotionless puppet again, killing on the Emperor's orders?" The image of Feo suddenly cut through his thoughts. "Overcome your fear, Kazone." He slowly began to realize something and smiled a smile full of irony. "So that's what this is." And here I was, surprised by Halo's sudden kindness. Kazone steeled his resolve and approached the demon sword. It turns out the true purpose of the awakening ritual wasn't to find a weapon, but to force the heir, the one who awakens the blue sense, to confront and overcome the fear rooted in their heart. He reached his hand out towards the familiar hilt. The moment the young man touched it, his magic was violently drained by the sword. His eyes widened at the paralyzing sensation that ran through his mind. His body suddenly fell into water. Is this the blue sense of The blood-sealed demon sword lay right beside him. The pure water was slowly washing away the impurities from its blood seal. "I don't know why it chose you in this form." But the distance between it and Kazone gradually shortened. It was originally the sword of the founder general. You must hold it with both hands to control it. The sword your grandfather took was also a founder's sword, but it's completely different. Kazone himself was hit with another violent shock because the power it possessed was completely different from his family's bloodline. The young man squeezed his eyes shut and gritted his teeth. Enduring the pain, everything suddenly returned to how it was before surprising him. What is this? The mysterious figure reminded him, endure it. The magic in the sword is engraving itself onto your body. Although his face was drenched in sweat, he was thrilled. The flow of magic in my body is now even more intense than the sword itself, and its magical power is this terrifying. Kazun carefully inspected the sharp blade, marveling at the blue horn. As for the true name of this sword, the answer came swiftly. A sword that has slain countless demons, devouring their power. A sword whose name alone makes demons flee in terror, to the point that history itself erased all record of it. A blade born from the deep northern sea, a place both dark and pure. The light reflecting from it was razor sharp. Guillotine, the Decapitator. Kazan seemed mesmerized by it. Lost in the sharp beauty of Guillotine, the Decapitator, the mysterious figure spoke, his deep voice echoing as if from an abyss. This suits your destiny well, little boy. At that moment, he grew a bit curious. By the way, who are you? Kazan ventured a guess. You call yourself the Blue Clan. Are you our family's guardian, Blue Dragon? But he denied it. In a tone full of arrogance, you are not yet worthy of speaking my true name. Then he made a request that made him sigh softly. If one day you become master of the seas, come find me in the North Sea. Kazan lifted Guillotine, shrugged, and said, So, how do I get out of here now? The man replied in a mocking tone, You already know, don't you? His attention then shifted to the throne. A wicked smile spread across his lips. Ah, just as I thought. The sword was swung with his excitement, a dangerous glint in his eyes. Perfect. I've been wanting to do this for a while. He decisively struck a powerful slash to destroy it. Outside, Fio was still waiting, his anxiety clear in every action. Halo noticed this and reassured him. Don't worry, Fio. Fio hesitated and said, I'm sorry, Father. It's just... He nodded, looking at his son. Walking a new path is never easy, I understand. Halo gave him some firm advice. But that's precisely why you must keep a steady heart. And Feo gave a faint smile. Yes, Father. Leo was the first to cry out when he noticed the disturbance, his face going deathly pale. The Oath Stone. He hastily reported. Grandfather, the Oath Stone is breaking. This shocked Halo, who looked over. What? A second later, the stone split into two pieces right before their eyes. Shielding his face, he exclaimed in shock, What in the world is happening? The one they had been waiting for had returned along with his weapon. Huh. Kazan rubbed his head in confusion. Did I really come back? The corner of his mouth curled into a crooked smile. The Oath Stone is gone. The other members of the clan were stunned into silence by the sight. After fumbling for a moment, Kazan finally noticed the fragments at his feet. He spoke to them hesitantly. The Oath Stone, it broke. Fio's face went white with shock. Kazan, what in the world have you done? You dare break the Oath Stone! The young man deliberately feigned ignorance as he turned to look at Halo. His grandfather didn't scold him, but was startled by something else. He recognized the object in his hand. That sword. Guillotine the Decapitator, the beheading sword of our ancestor Ryan Redstone. It was erased from the family's history, passed down only by word of mouth among the clan head and the elders. So why? Not just him, but the other masters who had come along were also wondering, why has it appeared here? Halo immediately questioned him, his tone grave. Kazan, could it be that the time of the pact is drawing near? But, meanwhile, he was busy admiring Guillotine. A proud smile appeared on his lips. Aren't you afraid of that sword, boy? Kazan's reply was so firm it surprised the old man. Not at all. Halo accepted that answer very quickly. I see. Halo began to reminisce about the old days. A very long time ago, our ancestors failed to fulfill their pact with the Blue Dragon, a pact to wipe out the demons swarming from the ends of the earth. They left the Oath Stone as proof of that pact, entrusting their vow to the future, waiting for a special person to appear and fulfill it. Could it be that Kazan is the one to inherit that pact? He ended his recollection by raising a hand to the sky, a gesture full of authority. Halo Redstone. The words that followed were truly shocking. He declared Kazan, son of Fel Redstone, is an official member of the Azure Sea Fortress, the direct descendant chosen by Guillotine the Decapitator, and is worthy of inheriting the sacred art of the Spirit Sea. Raphael cried out in fury, his face scrunching up. I can't believe a brat like him is receiving the sacred art of the Spirit Sea, Theo whispered, assessing the situation with a sharp gaze. Guillotine the Decapitator, huh? Meanwhile, Theo worriedly checked on him. Are you hurt anywhere? Kazun obediently replied, No, sir. The more Theo thought about it, the more bewildered he became. I thought I knew of every weapon passed down in our family, but I've never heard of that sword. But in my eyes, the aura it radiates is formidable, and just looking at it sends a chill down my spine. Despite this, Raphael persisted before the two of them, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Theo, your son is walking a path that you yourself have never set foot on. But I will never allow my position to be threatened by an unknown variable like your son. As dawn broke, Halo quickly told them, The awakening ceremony is over. Let's return. They had barely taken a few steps when Raphael called out loudly, Eldest brother! He asked indignantly, a vein pulsing on his face. Are you really just going to stand there and watch? Theo understood his intent and replied, Perhaps we should have a private talk soon. He immediately nodded. Fine, that works for me. Inside, Theo thought to himself, even someone so incredibly greedy is starting to recognize the crisis. Right, but Raphael changed the subject. By the way, do you know anything about this sword called the Decapitator? Though he was reluctant, Theo still had to confess. His anger suddenly flared up. Eldest brother, I truly cannot understand the situation at all. Why did it have to be Theo's son? He immediately turned to look ahead. The important thing now is that they're all focused on the father and son. This isn't the time for us to be divided. As time passed, a beautiful new day began. They had arrived at the train station, but Theo was a little uneasy. Are you sure you'll be okay staying here by yourself? He answered firmly, Yes, father. Henrik quickly added, Is there any place safer than the Azure Sea Fortress? He forced a smile. That's true. When it comes to external threats, it's definitely safe. But what I'm worried about is Raphael and Theo becoming a problem in my mind. A threat from within. Of course, with father here, I don't think those two would do anything rash. He coughed a few times to get Theo's attention. Duke Henrik then reminded him of a few things. The one entrusted with performing the Azure Spirit Inheritance ritual for young Master Kazone is Lady Savina. As soon as he heard the name, Theo realized. Oh, it's her. Theo's tone immediately brightened. If it's her, then I can rest easy. Kazone noticed it too. Savina. If it's her, then it's a sure thing. He frowned to himself. Savina Reston, Harlow's younger sister. She's famous for being a master just as skilled as Harlow. Wasn't she once called the White Wolf? Then Theo carefully reminded him. She's always doted on me, so Kazone, you must absolutely not be disrespectful to her, understand? The boy nodded obediently right away. Yes, father, I'll do my best. Then Henrik spoke up again. And one more thing. There's a message from the family head. Theo looked surprised. From father. Hearing the message relayed moved Theo. He said he will prepare a place for you in the Azure Sea Fortress so that you may visit at any time. He couldn't hold back and quickly wiped away a tear. Is that true? Father. He quickly regained his composure. Now I can leave without any worries. Thank you, Henrik. He replied politely. It was nothing. Fell gently ruffled his hair for a moment longer. Take care, Kazone. If you need any help, just contact me any time. He happily agreed. Yes, father. The last train departed, taking people back to their homes. Kazone was led to the tower by Henrik, escorted by the Seawolf Knights. He slowed down a bit and urged him, Let's go. Lady Savina is waiting. Kazone reacted quickly. We can't keep her waiting. But before that, he suddenly spoke to him. Excuse me, may I offer you a piece of advice? Of course, Kazone cordially accepted. Please go ahead. Henrik said seriously, Lady Savina hates being called ma'am. It would be best for you to avoid using that term. The boy nodded in understanding. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you for the warning. Kazone thought to himself, what's wrong with calling his sister ma'am? Afterward, they passed through a sturdy fortress wall and set foot on new ground. Henrik took the initiative to explain, only direct descendants of the family are permitted to train. Within this Azure Sea Forest, Lady Savina is waiting. Please, young master, come in. He suddenly remembered something else. Ah, and young Master Leo is also present. As soon as he heard that, an idea sparked in Kazone's mind. I get to be with Leo too. Henrik carefully added, it seems the two young masters personally requested Lady Savina. At that, they stopped. He waved goodbye and quickly moved on. Well, I'm off then. That small but enthusiastic figure caught his attention. Henrik pushed his glasses up slightly and smiled. It's been a long time since it's been this lively. Meanwhile, an overwhelming wave of mana was pouring out from the entrance. His senses were on high alert. Just standing outside, he could already feel the immense magical power. As he was thinking cautiously, a voice rang out from inside. Why are you still standing out there? Get in here! Urged on, he quickly pushed the door open. Kazone Reston, son of Theo, reporting for the first time. The moment he stepped inside, the young man was stunned by the sight. She glanced over her tone, full of mockery. Well now, who is this? What are you surprised? I don't look like what you imagined. Even though she was sitting, she exuded a noble aura. Kazone Reston, son of Theo. Savina glanced at him with sharp eyes. I never thought you'd be the son of that Theo. The cute one from all those years ago. Time really flies over here. The corner of Kazone's mouth twitched uncontrollably. She reconstructed her body with mana, which means it's not real ridiculous. It can't be. The power of an 8-star knight. Just as Kazone stepped inside, Savina's cold voice rang out. Why are you just standing there? Sit down, cross-legged. Her voice continued, startling both Kazone and Leo. You can sit next to Leo. He immediately went to his spot and turned to Leo beside him with a sly grin. We'll be seeing a lot of each other. Let's get along, brother. Savina, sitting to the side, let her lazy gaze sweep over the two of them before asking a question. I never expected to hear the title White Wolf from a child like you. Hearing this, Kazone immediately replied cautiously, I read about it in a book. Savina sighed at his cleverness. A smug smile appeared on her lips. What an interesting child, just as my brother said. Kazone didn't seem scared or worried at all. On the contrary, he provoked her further with another question. May I ask what grandfather said about me? Savina coldly recalled Halo's arrogant expression when he spoke of Kazone and recounted his words. He's a child that makes people fond of him. That's what he said. Now I understand why. Then her eyes seemed to flash as she remembered Halo's true words. This is a child who must cross the ocean. Help that child, so that one day he can rule the seas. Savina's face grew serious as she contemplated his instructions. She had to become Kazone's guiding lighthouse. Silently observing Kazone's entire body and aura, she couldn't help but be amazed. Just from a glance, this child's potential is colossal, fierce, vast, and endless. You could call it this potential of an expanding ocean. She couldn't help but think of great waves, of the ocean, of him. Right now, he's like an untamed, raging wave. Savina continued her assessment. He has great potential to master the ocean. She stared at the two children sitting seriously before her, a playful glint in her eyes as she thought. Who would have thought I'd meet such an interesting child here? Immediately after, she shot up from her chair and approached them. Let's begin. The cross-legged position you're in is the most basic foundation for cultivating mana. Savina explained seriously, lightly rotating her hand. Once you move past the elementary level, you can cultivate mana without sitting cross-legged. Immediately, she unleashed her mana with incredible force for them to witness. The force of Savina's mana erupted, blasting toward Leo and Kazone, taking them completely by surprise. Kazone regained his composure and glared intently at Savina. This is Azure Sea Mana. Savina gradually withdrew the mana surrounding her. She gave a small smile and explained seriously, the Azure Sea Dominion technique is in essence the method to master the seas. Using Azure Sea mana, you can create and circulate oceans within your body. Looking at the two sitting seriously before her, Savina continued her lecture. The more oceans you circulate, the stronger you become. When you can circulate 8 oceans, you can reach the 8-star realm. The stage where you operate those 8 oceans as one is called the 9-star level. Kazone listened intently and seriously to her every word. Her lecture. Across the entire continent, only 3 people have achieved it. In the Empire, there is only one. As she spoke of it, Savina grinned triumphantly. The only person on the continent to reach 9 stars is your grandfather, and my older brother, Halo. Hearing his grandfather's name from Savina's lips, a new resolve swelled within him. Halo, in this life I will catch up to you. Savina was startled when she saw the determination in his eyes. This kid, he even craves power. Then she broke into an amused smile. An interesting child. Training him will be fun. Inside the secluded academy in the forest, a serious voice echoed. Let the mana flow through the circuits just opened by the awakening ritual. Leo and Kazone focused intensely, training under Savina's guidance. The power of the sea is not to be controlled, but to become one with. Kazone slowly felt the violent waves inside his body. He gradually felt the raw power of the waves. And then, pulses of waves gathered and were released from his heart. Savina was shocked to see sparks of magic emanating from within his body. She frowned grimly, assessing the area around him. Is this the mana of a child who just completed the awakening ritual? She then turned to look at Leo, who was also concentrating on his training, and mused. The one I taught the Azure Sea Dominion technique to 2 years ago is only just now approaching the 2-star level. Savina stared at Kazone again, unable to shake her doubt. Kazone is carving his own mana circuits, even though I haven't taught him how. Kazone continued to feel the changes in his body. I feel like my body is being torn apart. Hearing his unusual grunt, Savina stared at him full of doubt. Did he stop cultivating on his own? Did his body start feeling the strain? Just as she was lost in thought, something caught her attention. He even knows how to adjust his pace. Just then, Leo next to him lost all his strength and collapsed heavily onto the floor, startling Savina. She immediately rushed to catch him, her tone slightly reproachful. I told you not to force yourself to circulate mana. You know. Looking at Leo's condition, Savina felt a pang of guilt. I was too focused on Kazone and forgot that Leo is just a child. She was still lost in her own thoughts. That's why an adult like me is here, to stop them from harming their bodies. Kazone, watching this from behind, muttered with a sigh. You're pathetic. Savina glanced at him, silently assessing. This child is clearly aware of his own limits, and he stopped training on his own to avoid overdoing it. She stared at him with great seriousness, continuing her evaluation. At his age, to maintain such composure and self-control despite his desire to become stronger, looking at the boy's indifferent face, Savina's eyes unconsciously turned cold. Brother, this child doesn't need a lighthouse. Immediately after that, she walked up and stood before him, calling his name seriously. Kazone. Savina's face was solemn as she made a vow. For 3 years, I will guarantee your safety. But to his astonishment, Savina continued giving an order. During those 3 years, focus on building the strength to protect yourself. Kazone was completely bewildered. He unconsciously accepted her demand. Yes, my lady. Meanwhile, on the training grounds, a group was training with great seriousness. Garrus watched the two of them fight and shouted angrily, Don't be sloppy! Swing as if you're in a real battle! Right after that. He noticed the group that had just appeared on the field. Leo and Kazone slowly walked on to the training grounds. Leo hesitated, looking at the sword in Kazone's hand, and asked, Are you planning to train with that sword? He found the question strange and asked back, Is there a problem? After that, Kazan seemed to be gritting his teeth in frustration as he snapped, Everyone said it had a fierce aura, so I put it in grandfather's scabbard. Are you still not satisfied? Seeing how angry he was, Leo quickly waved his hands. No, it's not that I don't like it. It's just... Garrus approached, cutting off their conversation. Welcome, Kazun Leo. The boy stared at the tall man in front of him, stunned. This person is Garrus. Garrus seemed to see his confusion. He explained, Today I will be in charge of Kazan's sword training. His face was stern as he continued to introduce himself. I am Garrus, commander of the Sea Wolf Knights. Just call me Sir Garrus. His face showed both shock and delight. It's a pleasure to meet you, Sir Garrus. I can tell your skill level just by looking at you. Garrus stared at him and said bluntly, I will not call you young lord until you have been acknowledged by the Sea Wolf Knights Blue Wolf Pack. Hearing this, Kazan didn't get angry. Instead, he gave a slight shrug. Actually, that makes me more comfortable. I was never used to the title Grandson of the Duke anyway. The man's voice continued evenly. I also understand the Western family tradition. You must earn the respect of the Blue Wolf Pack with your skills. Garrus noticed his nonchalant attitude. He was a little surprised. An interesting reaction. Most show their displeasure. He then turned to look at Leo, much to the boy's confusion. Young Master Leo is no exception. He stared at Kazan, thinking relentlessly. Has a wise heir finally appeared? At that moment, his face... He broke into an incredibly fierce grin. It made both Leo and Garrus suddenly feel a chill of fear. Seeing Garrus's terrified expression, Kazan couldn't help but think, in the end, they will all bow before me. The three of them stood motionless in the middle of the vast training ground, each lost in their own thoughts. Could there be someone even worse? 3 years later, at the Azure Sea Fortress, the man slowly savored the glass of wine in his hand. Savina held her own glass, sighing in admiration. As expected, Big Brother's wine is still number one. Halo looked at her with a hint of helplessness and whispered, Savina, isn't it about time you stopped stealing my wine? Hearing that, Savina looked at him, annoyed, annoyed, and sullen. How can you speak so coldly? I've been teaching your nephews for 3 years, all because you asked me to. Halo seemed to drift into thought, his face pensive. Has it really been 3 years? Then he suddenly asked a probing question. After all this time, what's your impression of him? Savina was a bit surprised by Halo's question. My impression of him. Her voice rang through the room like a declaration. That kid is a monster. Halo sipped his wine, hesitating with a confused look. You call my nephew a monster so casually. The guard standing beside them also looked a bit awkward, because even the word genius is an insult to him at this point. Halo turned to Garrus, continuing his inquiry. Hearing this, the knight's face grew serious. After observing Kazan for 3 years, I must say, I agree with Lady Savina. His analytical voice continued steadily. His physique, natural talent, attitude toward training, determination, and even his courage, everything is outstanding. Garrus affirmed Kazan's talent with utmost seriousness. This boy is far superior to the eldest young master, the one rumored to be a genius. Hearing this, Halo's face suddenly grew dark and cold. Are you talking about Theo's eldest son, Hugo? He looked straight at Garrus, his gaze sharp as if waiting for a final confirmation. A talent even more outstanding than Hugo, who's considered the best in the nation. As soon as Garrus's affirmation was uttered, Savina broke into a radiant smile and chimed in, her tone dripping with sarcasm. If you don't manage this well, the family will be in an uproar, my dear brother. Seeing her jest, Halo looked a bit confused. What do you mean by that? Savina dropped her playful demeanor and stared at him intently. Think about how Kazan affects the succession. What do your sons think of him? Halo picked up the wine bottle and, while pouring it into the empty glass before him, analyzed her words. Are you saying my sons are in danger because of him? For now, everything is still under control. But once this news spreads throughout the Empire, who knows? Hearing this, Savina asked with a mix of confusion and anger, isn't it obvious enough? This will affect the line of succession and what happens after that. Halo's pensive face looked incredibly fearsome in response to her question, causing Savina to back down. Immediately after, she let out a long sigh, her tone softening considerably. Now that the Oath Stone has been broken, is our family coming to an end? The number of northern sea monsters crossing the border has also suddenly skyrocketed. Just as Savina finished her sentence, a voice laced with anger snapped, Nonsense! Halo stared at her seriously. He explained dismissively, You break a stone and a new one is forged, just like our ancestors did in the old days. Savina suddenly gave a knowing smile, the corner of her mouth twitching upwards. I've never heard that story before. Is it a prophecy passed down to the firstborn grandson? He didn't refute Savina's words at all, simply explaining, It means the time of the covenant is approaching. Savina's sharp eyes suddenly flashed as she looked directly at Halo. Our dear little brother is about to shoulder a lot of responsibility. Savina continued to press Halo with another question. So, when will you tell Kazun? He thought for a moment before explaining, when the time comes. Father, is everyone doing well? First, I apologize for not being able to visit home yet. Training has been so busy. The weather has gotten much colder recently. Father, you're sensitive to the cold, so please remember to dress warmly. Recently, I've mastered the 4-star Spirit Sea secret art and the 4th form of the Blue Wolf sword style. Yes, I'm also trying to get along with the family. Just as you asked, especially Leo, which I'm taking very good care of him. Oh, right, I have a request. I've run out of spending money. Could you maybe send a little more, Father? Reading his son's letter, Theo couldn't help but let out an indulgent chuckle. He gently set the letter down and sighed happily. Henry, you know. I still remember how worried I was about Kazone at the Azure Sea Fortress 3 years ago. Theo's voice was filled with joy. It's amazing how quickly he adapted. Seeing his lord's delighted expression, Henry also felt happy and remarked, With the young master around the Azure Sea Fortress hasn't had a single quiet day. Just then Theo seems to remember something. He grew pensive and sighed softly. I've told him so many times it's not good to stand out too much. Henry immediately tried to comfort him with a strained smile. But gold will shine no matter where it is. But right after that, his tone shifted, becoming serious. But things might be about to change. They can't keep the information about Kazone within the fortress walls any longer. Theo heard this. And asked Henry seriously, his eyes sharp. Are you saying the boy can finally accept missions? Henrik immediately clarified. That's right. He has to complete his assigned mission as a member of the Blue Wolf Pack. It was then that Theo began to voice his concerns. I'm worried my two brothers won't be pleased to see my son's influence growing at the Azure Sea Fortress. Hearing this, Henrik seemed a bit more relaxed and gave a faint smile. I can only say one thing about that. Henrik chuckled softly and said with certainty, Lady Savina has always cared deeply for Kazone. Hearing this, Theo breathed a sigh of relief. That's right. She's there too. Then Theo chuckled softly and explained to Henrik, My son has mentioned it in his letters for the past 3 years, but hearing you confirm it again puts my mind at ease. Hearing Theo's reaction, Henry laughed. Lady Savina has always cared about you as well, hasn't she, my lord? Upon hearing this mentioned, Theo sighed a bit helplessly. Perhaps the monthly allowance I send helps in some way. Henrik glanced at Theo and joked, Seeing you just like this, you must be feeling much more at ease, right? Theo's expression suddenly turned serious as he asked Henrik, But she hasn't left the Azure Sea Fortress, has she? As if sensing the worry in Theo's heart, he explained, You don't need to worry about that. Seeing the confusion on Theo's face, Henrik immediately elaborated. Kazan has built such a solid relationship with the Wolf Knights at the Azure Sea Fortress that they've even given him a nickname. Though it's a bit disrespectful, but when that nickname was mentioned, Theo was also utterly speechless about that nickname. I've heard it. The little mad dog of the Azure Sea Fortress. Isn't that right? Meanwhile, at the Azure Sea Fortress, a fierce training battle was underway. Kazone continuously landed powerful blows on his opponent's wooden sword, causing it to shatter instantly. Han, holding the broken wooden sword, spoke up helplessly. Kazon, stop. I lose. But Kazone just stared at the broken sword in his own hand and mused. Han, why did you just let me hit you? Because my sword path was off. His face was cold as he stared at Han, questioning him. Don't you know that the Blue Wolf sword style becomes meaningless if you use less force than your opponent? You have to counterattack with full strength. Why are you so weak? Han looked bewildered at his angry face and explained, I think you're the only one who would dare call me weak, sir. Kazon ignored him and continued his critique. Your muscles are like a deflating balloon. Hearing that, Han was even more bewildered. I've never heard anyone say that before. Kazon immediately pointed to himself with a confident grin. I just say the truths that no one else dares to. Han looked at Kazon's antics and reasoned, Even without magic, I'd still lose to you, sir. It wasn't this bad last year, though. Then he looked at Kazon and whispered a report. You're about to be sent on a mission. He was very surprised to hear that. Where did you hear that? Han thought for a moment, his voice hesitant. I just know that. Garas will decide the deployment time for the mission on behalf of the family head, who is in the capital. He looked at Kazone worriedly and continued, It's probably to the supply depot in the western part of the duchy. Monsters have been appearing there a lot recently. As soon as he heard he was going on a mission, he excitedly turned to the adjacent training yard and shouted, Cousin, we're going on a mission! Leo, who was training, lost his focus when he heard Kazone's voice, thinking to himself, I don't want to go on a mission with that jerk Kazon. The training instructor saw Leo lose focus and called out, Lord Leo, you're in the middle of a match. Focus. Only then did Leo seriously stare at the instructor, but he couldn't help thinking to himself, perhaps father and mother would be very pleased if I excel on this mission. Back in the study, Theo looked sternly at Henry and said, Henrik, I didn't call you here because of Kazone's letter. Hearing this, a look of surprise appeared on Henry's face. Is something wrong? Theo pushed a small bag towards him. Take a look at this. As Henrik took the bag to examine it, Theo explained. The family inspector found it in a cargo wagon from the barony of Belus. The moment Henry put his hand inside to check the object, he too froze in astonishment. With a grim and cold expression, he said, "Drugs. Can you investigate Baron Bellis from the Blue Sea Fortress?" Upon hearing this request, he fell silent, deep in serious thought, his gaze fixed on the object in his hand. The night scene was perfectly still as the train slowly pulled into the station. A man quietly stepped off the train, his voice ringing with suspicion. He stood in the shadows, staring at the towers and whispering, "So, this is the Blue Sea Fortress." The night sky was silent, and the bright full moon shone down on the rooftops below. At the Grand Castle, guards holding torches walked around on patrol. A figure peeking out from behind a wall furtively looked around. Kazan swirled the bottle in his hand and let out a delighted laugh. "Stealing from Garrus's collection is always a thrill." He chuckled happily and walked away, even with the body of a child. How could I ever forget the taste of wine? Kazan stopped short when he saw the figures of two strangers. "Huh, who are they? I've never seen them before." The two were walking and chatting when he suddenly appeared. "Is the Duke truly away? This is urgent." "Yes, sir. He has gone to the capital to petition His Majesty. Currently, the Knight Commander is handling all affairs." The two of them stopped and turned to look at Kazan. "Ah, young master, why are you here at this hour?" "This is Lord Johann, the second son of Baron Bellis. He says he has an urgent matter to report to the Blue Sea Fortress." "The youngest grandson, then?" "He must be the son of the third Duke who is removed from the line of succession. I think I vaguely heard that he awakened his magic and is being trained at their private residence." "His name is Kazan Reston, I believe." "It is a great honor to meet you. I am Johann Bellos." But he turned his face to the man beside him and said, "Then just tell me what's going on." "But perhaps this matter should be reported to the Knight Commander." Is no one going to say anything about the kid holding a bottle of wine?" Kazan continued calmly, stunning Johann. "The Lieutenant Colonel only needs to send a representative. But he has taken the trouble to come all this way. It must be a very urgent matter, mustn't it? In that case, it is only proper for a nobleman to step up and handle it personally." Seeing this, the other man bowed his head and replied, "I understand. I will report this privately to Commander Garras." Well done, Johann thought to himself. This kid is no ordinary young master. To have such political judgment at his age. "But that bottle of wine is still bothering me." He turned to Johann and asked, "Shall we go?" Johann looked a little worried, thinking, are the Restons always like this? He's allowed to drink wine at such a young age. Beneath the starry night sky, light shone from the house through the cracks in the windows. In the cozy room, two people were talking. "Bandits are occupying the eastern mountains of your territory." "Is that right?" Kazan asked, swirling the wine bottle in his hand. "Yes, that's correct," Johann replied in a sorrowful tone. "And ever since they appeared, drugs have started to spread. Villagers have been kidnapped and sold into slavery. Yes, it's shameful to admit, but our Bellows territory has always been poor. The terrain is treacherous, and we have no noteworthy products. For years, we haven't been able to field a proper army, so we couldn't deal with them. My father couldn't bear it any longer, so he took what little forces we had and attacked, but we suffered heavy losses. My father was seriously injured and is now bedridden. Could it all be my fault? It's my incompetence that has caused my father and our people to suffer?" Kazan suddenly slammed the bottle on the table, startling Johann. With a furious look, Kazan growled, "Those bastards deserve to be torn to shreds." He calmed down, his voice softening. "But there are a few things that don't add up. I mean, how could a mere group of bandits stand against a regular army?" Johann held out his hands, sweating bullets. "I'm not sure, but I suspect they are deserters from the war in the Southern Kingdom." "Deserters from the war in the Southern Kingdom, you say?" Kazan's eyes darted around as he thought for a moment. "So that's it. After the Mad Emperor was deposed, the Imperial Army was downsized. Most of the forces were sent south for the war. They didn't have the strength to worry about the north. A security vacuum was bound to appear." "Right." He rested his arm on the chair and continued, "Deserters turning into bandits. That seems like the most logical explanation." Just then, Kazan picked up a bottle of wine and said cheerfully to Johann, "You must be in a terrible mood, sir. Care for a drink?" Without waiting for Johann's reply, he immediately poured the wine into a glass on the table. You may not know this, but the Bellows territory borders my father's land, so this isn't something I can just ignore. If I could, I'd want to go and lend a hand myself. Johann picked up the glass, thinking to himself, thank you for the kind thought, but should I really be drinking something offered by a child? Kazan suddenly spoke again, startling Johann once more. Oh, by the way, I, dug this bottle out of Commander Garrus's collection. So let's just keep this between us, okay? Wait! Johann's face went pale. Garrus, as in the commander of the renowned Blue Wolf Knights. Tschüss. The door suddenly burst open, and Garrus's authoritative voice echoed through the room. I thought we had an agreement that you wouldn't touch my wine anymore. A startled Johann quickly stood up to explain. My apologies, sir. I had no intention of offending you. You're the young baron. How could you have known? Garrus said. Don't worry about it. I've heard about the bandits. They're causing you no small amount of trouble. Johann replied awkwardly, yes, that's right. That's why I came here to request that the Blue Wolf Knights intervene personally. But as he was about to say more, Kazan chuckled at that. Heh. Garras spun around and snatched the glass from Kazan's hand, his face dark. I told you. You're too young to be drinking. It's not good for you. Ah, my wine, Kazun yelled. Garrus turned back to Johann, his tone apologetic. My apologies for letting the young baron witness such an unsightly scene. Johann, his face still pale, quickly waved his hands in reply. No, it's quite all right. Garrus spoke to Johann seriously. You've come to the right place. The Azure Fortress will not ignore the plight of an old ally. Hearing you say that puts my mind at ease, Johann said, overjoyed. Garrus added to further reassure him, we have already prepared forces to dispatch to the Bellows territory. You need not worry. Hearing this, Johann was overjoyed. Thank you, sir. What a relief. Finally, I have some good news to report to my people. Kazan suddenly spoke up. His eyes sharp, he said, Lord Garrus, I will go too. Garrus immediately rejected his request. Absolutely not. The enemy is trained. We don't know if there are any masters hiding among them. Johann's eyes widened as he thought, what did that kid really just say? He wants to go with them. Even if he's being trained at the residence, he looks to be 12 or 13 at most. Garrus's face became extremely tense. They say your progress has reached the 4th star level and that you've mastered the 4th form of the Azure Lance sword style in just 3 years. But a real battle is a completely different matter. Kazan closed his eyes as if deeply troubled. In a frustrated tone, he said, there's no point in you coddling me forever. I would rather send you to the west. Facing a known danger is better than an unknown one. I will not let you risk facing an enemy whose size, strength, and location are all unknown. After hearing this, Kazan became excited, a clever glint in his eyes. Really? He smiled happily. In that case, what if I make you an offer you can't refuse? Kazan suddenly clutched his stomach and chuckled, leaving the other two standing there stunned and confused. Leo asked with a look of disbelief. Why me? He stood beside Leo and clapped him cheerfully on the shoulder. Come on, cousin, cheer up. After all, this is our first mission. Garrus stood to one side watching them and thinking to himself, I've been tricked. That brat dragged Lady Savina into this. Meanwhile, she stood with her arms crossed, sighing emotionally. Aw, the kids are so adorable. Garrus turned to look at Savina. Wait a minute. Perhaps this is for the best. They'll have a reliable guardian with them. She continued to watch the two of them, saying, It reminds me of my first mission. I was just as excited. Garrus looked back again, and since young Master Leo agreed to go on this condition, he must be satisfied with their training progress. Johann stood aside observing the four of them. Lady Savina, the legendary White Wolf, but no matter how strong she is, they're still just two children. Will this really be all right? Kazan spoke excitedly. I'm really looking forward to this trip. Johann's face went pale. If something happens to the Duke's nephew, my entire clan will be held responsible. What if they get seriously injured? Gera stepped forward to reassure Johann. Don't worry. What you're afraid of won't happen. He quickly turned his head. Ah, Commander Garrus. Garrus then began to explain, soothing Johann's worries. With Lady Savina accompanying them, the two young masters won't be in any danger. Yes. Oh, about that Garrus. She spoke up, causing Johan and Leo's faces to darken. Unless the children are in a life-or-death situation, I will not intervene. Hearing this, Garrus retorted in a frustrated tone. I know you believe in their growth, my lady, but Savina cut Garrus off with a sharp glare. You know it's not just about that, don't you, Garrus? Of course, my dear lady is as bold as ever. She smiled slightly and added, There is a reason why I cannot intervene directly. Garrus also closed his eyes in agreement, which struck Johan like a bolt of lightning. Yes, I understand if that is truly your intention. Savina looked at everyone and asked, It's time, isn't it? Seeing Leo's fearful expression, she let out a sigh. Then Savina spoke up. It's understandable for Leo to feel anxious. Confused, Leo turned to look at Lady Savina, but she just smiled gently and explained, reassuring him, Think of this as a chance to prove how hard you've worked. How, in the past 3 years, a chance to be recognized as an official member of the Blue Wolves. Leo unconsciously repeated Savina's words. An official member of the Blue Wolves. Huh. Leo suddenly regained his composure, which made Kazone look over in surprise. Well, Kazone started teasing him. Cousin, you always need someone to light a fire under you, don't you? Get going then. Shut up. You okay? Kazone smiled and walked ahead. All right. Where are our seats? Leo followed behind, thinking to himself, I knew it. His expression turned completely serious. I always knew the day would come when I'd have to prove myself. A loud voice echoed through the magic train. The train from the Azure Sea Fortress to the Bellis Dominion is now departing. The train began to move out of the massive fortress. I just didn't expect that day to come so soon. The train sped past rows of dense green trees. Huh. A top-secret mission, you say, Savna said, sitting inside the cabin with her arms crossed. To be honest, the fact that I snuck into the Azure Sea Fortress in the first place and was already top secret, so I can't exactly go parading around showing my face, can I? The moment I show my face, those mountain bandits will disappear without a trace. You wouldn't want that, would you, sir? Johan avoided her gaze. No white wolf. He still looked worriedly at the two of them, but leaving everything to these two kids. Is this really going to be okay? One of them has this blank look on his face like he doesn't have a care in the world. Didn't they say this was his first mission? Johan glanced over at Leo. The other one is as tense as a fiddle string. He was leaning his head against the window, his face gloomy. Leo was muttering, I really don't understand what you've got in that head of yours. What is wrong with you? How could you get mixed up with that little punk Kazone? Have you already forgotten what happened 3 years ago? Remember this. Well, he is not your friend. He is your enemy. 3 years ago, he completely humiliated you and disgraced your father's honor. Yet here you are laughing and talking with him like nothing ever happened. Is your brain just for decoration? You've got a mouth. Why don't you try talking back for once? What a spineless man. Leo, covered in a cold sweat, replied, Mom, I'm sorry. But there's nothing like a rivalry between me and Kazone. What? He continued more boldly. Even the great genius Hugo had to wait until he was 14 to reach 3 stars. But Kazone already reached 4 stars when he was 13. Compared to him, I'm 15 this year, and I've only just managed to crawl my way to 3 stars. Can't you see how huge that gap is, Mom? Kazone might be a goal for me to strive for, but as for being his rival, I don't stand a chance. Leo's mother shot him a sharp glare. Leo, you need to get rid of that inferiority complex right now. This isn't an inferiority complex. Kazone's existence is the motivation for me to work harder so that I can confidently stand on my own 2 feet. She closed her eyes and let out a long sigh. Leo, you really can't see the forest for the trees. A voice pulled Leo back to reality. Leo Reston. Yes, ma'am, he stammered in reply. Having that much trouble shaking off the tension, are you? Yes, I am. Well, after all this is your first mission, it's only natural to be tense. Savina's next question made Leo freeze. But with this mentality, will you be able to bring yourself to strike someone down? Kazone also groggily woke up from the noise, looking grumpy. But you're overthinking things. There's no need for you to doubt yourself. I more than anyone know how much blood, sweat, and tears you've put in over the last 3 years. After all, I'm the one who trained you. Right. Leo's body relaxed and he smiled in response. Yes, master. Master, huh? That has a nice ring to it. An announcement came over the speaker. Savina stood up from her seat. This train will arrive at the territory of Baron Bellis in 20 minutes. For this mission, let's just call each other master and disciple, shall we? Yes, master. White Wolf, where are you going? Leo asked in alarm as she walked over and opened the window. If I just show up at the Baron's station, news will spread immediately. I'm slipping out ahead of time. Johann cried out in panic. But White Wolf, the train is still moving. Savina brazenly climbed outside, alarming everyone. And little Baron, from now on, just call me Lady Savina. What? No, but... Johann was at a loss for words. Kazone, however, just sat there calmly watching a smirk playing on his lips. See, Master is as reckless as ever. Before she left, Savina didn't forget to tell Johann, my boys will be lurking around nearby. So don't worry too much. No one will blame you for anything. Lady Savina. In a flash, she leaped outside, leaving the two of them with their eyes wide in astonishment. Johann screamed in a panic, Lady Savina! Kazone, on the other hand, sat to the side laughing gleefully. The other two were drenched in sweat. What is going on? Is everyone in the Reston family this freaking crazy? Sitting on the bed, he covered his mouth with his hand and coughed continuously. Cough, cough. My health is not what it used to be. I hope the young masters from the House of Reston will forgive me for receiving you while seated. Johann quickly replied, Please, my lord, do not worry about it. How is your wound, my lord? Leaning on his cane, he sat up straight. They tell me I am past the critical stage. Thank you for your concern. I don't know if young Master Kazone remembers, but I met you and your father 15 years ago. You've grown into such an outstanding young man. Lord Raphael must be very proud. Kazone rubbed the back of his neck in embarrassment. Please, just speak to me naturally, sir. I'm not used to all this formality. It just makes me feel uncomfortable. Hearing this, the Baron asked, If you truly find it uncomfortable, may I call you young Master Kazone? He happily agreed. That would make me much more comfortable, Baron. The old man continued his questions. Having received your first mission, you must have reached the 4th star of the Jeha school. At such a young age, yes. My cousin Leo is still stuck at the 3rd star. He's clearly not a warrior, yet he knows how to get the upper hand, doesn't he? The Baron laughed, ha ha, then continued. In any case, the head of your house must think very highly of you both to have sent you here. And that is precisely why. I feel so guilty having to assign such a dangerous mission to two promising young men. Kazone spoke up, his eyes sharp as a blade. I understand the Baron's concern, but if we were to fail, wouldn't that tarnish the pride of the Blue Wolves? We have no intention of failing. Then Kazone turned to ask Leo, who looked completely bewildered. Right, cousin, huh? Yes, we will definitely complete the mission. The Baron coughed again. Cough, cough, quickly bringing a hand to his throat. Ha ha, thank you for saying so. Rohan, standing to one side, asked with concern, Father, are you all right? Seeing this, Kazone chose his words carefully. It seems the Baron needs to rest. We should take our leave. Very well, I'm counting on you. The guide is already waiting. Just follow him. Yes, sir. Amidst the vast and majestic snowy mountains, Kazone turned to Leo and asked in a mocking tone, What's wrong? Tired already? Leo's question made Kazone stop short. It's not that, but can we really trust this guy who calls himself an herbalist? Leo voiced his suspicions. Even if he's a guide who knows the terrain sent by the Baron, what's to guarantee he isn't one of the mountain bandits? Kazone smiled a wicked grin, teasing him. So you've finally decided to use your brain, have you? You're absolutely right. That old man is probably one of the bandits. Hearing this, Leo was only slightly surprised, his face turning pale. What? How did you know? Kazone put on a serious face and explained to Leo with a sharp gaze. Based on the conversation I had with the Lord when we first arrived at the station. Leo asked, confused, Huh? What conversation? Back at the station? Lord Rohan stammered. How do you plan to track down the bandits' hideout? He stuttered in reply. Well, we'll just have to make use of a traitor from within the domain. With a hand on his hip, Kazone gave a slight malicious smirk. Using a traitor? You mean, what an excellent method. Back in the present, that's pretty much what happened. Then why didn't you say anything to me? Kazone's answer made Leo freeze. Because you've been on edge like a taut string all day, haven't you? I can't believe the Lord would intentionally plant a traitor with us. He's quite the old fox, keeping a traitor by his side to use as a weapon against his own kind. Hearing this, Kazone's smirk widened into a smug grin. Exactly. The fact that old man has been getting away with everything for so long says it all. It also means they're cornered. They're desperate. That's why we're now acting as bait. Young noble masters passing through the Baron's domain to reach the neighboring region. It's a perfect scenario, isn't it? If they manage to kidnap us, they can demand a hefty ransom. Kazone walked straight ahead while warning Leo behind him. Looks like they're about to spring the trap. A group of men suddenly appeared before them. A big burly man with a fierce look handed Sven a bag of money. Good job, Sven. Since you're one of the family, I've thrown in a little extra. Thanks. One of the men pointed at the two of them and said with a contemptuous tone, Boss, these pampered pretty boys don't look like the obedient type. Kazone stood in front of Leo, his sharp eyes radiating an immense killing intent. Vermin like you dare to deal in forbidden goods in my father's domain. He lunged forward, his sword slashing repeatedly at the men. Blood splattered everywhere, stunning Leo. Sven collapsed onto the cold snow terrors streaming down his face. A monster! He stared wide-eyed at Kazone fighting. His face gradually darkened. Master Kazone is truly a monster. A man standing on the edge of the fight was hit by a spray of blood. He panicked, his face pale, and said to the man next to him, Boss, I don't think these guys are small fry. Maybe we should fall back and report to the main unit. Damn it. The captain became even more aggressive after hearing the advice veins popping on his face. There's no way I'm losing to a brat who still reeks of his mother's milk. He rushed at Kazon, shouting, Let me teach you a lesson, you little punk. He leaped high, raising both his weapons, his whole body radiating killing intent. Unfazed, Kazan casually swatted him away with one hand, sending the man flying. Noisy! His voice was threatening. A single downward slash, starting from the top of his head. It went straight through his body. The captain collapsed onto the white snow blood, spraying onto the ground. Leo stared at the sword, confused. Guillotine, I didn't even see him draw it. Kazan flicked his sword lightly and scoffed. Shh, you got my clothes dirty. As he slowly sheathed his sword, Leo's face showed a hint of anxiety. It wasn't just the kid Kazan himself, but the aura radiating from that blade felt like it could devour everything. Leo clutched his own throat, gasping for air. It was worse than being cut. It felt like his throat could be slit at any moment. Please spare us. The only one left kowtowed repeatedly, begging for his life. We surrender. Kazan rested his sword on his shoulder, a smug look on his face. Oh, really? What's your name? The man stammered in reply. Yes. My name is Auha. Kazan's eyes gleamed as his expression darkened. All right, Auha, you got any rope? The man replied without hesitation. Yes, I do. Kazan's words made Leo freeze for a moment. Give it to me. Huh. Yes. He took the rope Auha gave him and tied his own hands. Leo was tied up just like Kazan. Kazan, do we really have to go this far? I'm not talking about tying them up, but is it really necessary to make this guy carry all of our weapons? He tried to explain it to Leo. I already told you. If we're going to act as bait to lure them back to their den, we have to make it look convincing. If we look perfectly fine with our weapons still in hand, who's going to believe we were kidnapped? The two of them discussed this as they walked behind Auha, who led the way, swallowing nervously in fear. This is the only way, and for the story of us being captured and escorted to be believable. Otherwise, how could a guy like him possibly drag the two of us along? It's completely absurd. Even if we are just kids. After saying that, he suddenly called out, startling the man. So, on the way there, let's get some more information out of him. Hey, Auha. Yes. He raised his voice to ask, You guys are deserters, aren't you? Auha quickly answered in one breath. Yes. We used to belong to the 1st Battalion 9th Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division of the Kingdom of Caste, he said seriously. The Kingdom of Caste. That must be from the Southern Front. Kazan continued to question him. What are your numbers? How many of you are there in total? Auha once again gave him all the information he knew. Including 1 mage and 2 escort knights, we have a total of 130 men. Yes. He repeated in surprise. A mage vid, yes. After answering Kazan's question, Ao fearfully turned his face away. Well now, 130 deserters you say? Yes, damn it, we really picked the wrong ones. I thought they were just a couple of weak noble brats who couldn't even tie up a chicken. He was still lost in thought and didn't hear Kazan, whose eyes were now emitting that same blue magical energy from before. A mage, you said? They must be descendants of the Western family, the heart of the Oris Empire. This time it was Leo's turn to question him, his tone full of skepticism. But even if you are deserters, what are you doing all the way up here in the north? Ball. Ah, that. Aha replied, trembling with fear. The commander said he'd help us earn enough money to live comfortably for the rest of our lives. Hearing his answer, Kazan immediately furrowed his brow in suspicion. An infantry unit commander, backed by a mage. If their goal is money, why would they resort to banditry in the dirt-poor territory of Baron Belus? As he was thinking, Ao-ha suddenly let out a small, ah. As if realizing something was wrong, he suddenly stopped and said to the two of them, We're almost there, young masters. Kazan was calm, but Leo looked extremely tense, his face pale as a sheet. Well, let's just get there and see for ourselves. The three of them arrived at the base. A few men were standing guard on the fortress wall. A voice echoed down. What's up, Ao-ha? You actually caught some hostages. Shut your mouth. The two on the wall looked down and asked, Wait a minute, where are the others? Why are you the only one back? And what's with that pile of weapons on your back? Ao-ha tilted his head and answered calmly, his tone full of arrogance. What do you think I confiscated them from these brats, of course? This is my prize and mine alone now, scram. The others are chasing after the guards who ran for their lives. Now, open the gate. One of them shouted the command. Open the main gate. In a hurry, are we? Ao-ha ignored the taunt and walked inside, excited at the thought of being praised by the captain. The gate guard said sarcastically, Right. It would have been better if you'd brought the hostages back sooner. Ao-ha didn't care and just told him to be quiet. Shut up. Kazan, walking behind, observed and thought to himself, This bandit is surprisingly easy to push around. What is this flow of power I'm sensing? Sweat poured down Ao-ha's body like a river. I don't know why, but I've had this creepy feeling for a while now. Guillotine is reacting too. Leo called out to him, worried. But before them was a dead crow pinned to a tall wooden post. It was unmistakably the pillar they used for offerings. A magic circle suddenly appeared in the middle of the vast courtyard of the Dark Sorcerer in Baron Bellus's territory. His coughing grew more violent. Rohan poured some water and asked his father with concern, Father, Dad, are you all right? Coughing, he answered his son, I'm fine. Here you go. He brought the cup of water to him. Drink some water, it'll help. Thank you, son. The Baron took the cup, his face clearly showing his fatigue. Rohan suddenly asked him, Father, do you think those two young masters will be okay? He looked at the cup and said, To dare send 2 kids to our territory, and without any accurate information about those bandits, no less. That's enough to show how much the Azure Fortress trusts in the abilities of those 2 boys. Besides that kid named Kazan, the Baron's eyes showed absolute conviction. That boy reminds me of a young Duke Halo, not just in appearance, but also that confident demeanor along with that calm and chivalrous attitude. We can absolutely place all our hopes in those 2. Yes, Father. On the snowy mountain, the green grass was covered in white snow, followed by splatters of red blood. Kazan ruthlessly swung his sharp sword at the people around him. His eyes flashed and his mouth twisted into a malicious smirk. A magic circle unexpectedly appeared on the ground before the 3 of them. Moans could be heard from within. My sword will cut the ropes too. Ao-ha stared blankly. Huh? Making a sound, Kazun looked over at Leo, his tone commanding. Cousin, draw your guillotine. Leo was surprised. Huh? What? He gripped the guillotine in his hand. You'll need it soon enough. He still didn't understand. What do you mean? From within the magic circle, a group of skeletons rose up. Ao-ha gasped, startled. 13 skeletons fully equipped with swords and shields stood before the 3 of them. Someone shouted in a triumphant voice. The hostages walked right into our trap. It's like the heavens are helping us. From above, a row of archers was already in position. One of them, standing in the middle with an air of arrogance, looked down condescendingly. Welcome to my mountain hideout. You pampered noble brats. Kazan thought to himself, I don't see the dark sorcerer anywhere. He must be hiding somewhere chanting a spell. Still a pain in the ass. Thinking this, he raised the guillotine to Auha's neck. Make a move and I'll slit this one's throat. How about it? The man flinched. On the side, young Master Leo felt humiliated. What? Taking a hostage? Where's your noble honor? That guy looked down in silence, not saying anything. He was quite surprised by the scene. Nobles, taking a hostage. Aren't you the types who value honor more than your own lives? He smirked, pressing the guillotine closer to his neck. So, what is there a problem? He trembled. The young master on the other side gave a forced laugh. You're a funny one, but you're mistaken. A worthless hostage has no meaning at all. That guy is completely useless. Do whatever you want with him. Hearing that, Kazun just snorted, his tone full of contempt. Completely worthless, huh, Auha? Seeing him lower the sword, he let out a sigh of relief. My apologies, my lord, Leo warned cautiously. Kazan, we're outnumbered. Do you have a plan? He looked at Leo and smirked. Of course, he said confidently. We just need to take down that commander. His pupils suddenly glowed with blue mana. The man flinched. Blue mana. Impossible. Kazan turned back to look at Leo. Cousin, I'll leave the rest to you. Leo was bewildered. What did you say? A surge of mana exploded around him. He gripped his guillotine. I'll handle the commander myself. He charged forward, the torrent of mana swirling through the air. It flew towards the man's position. Leo shouted, Kazan! But in that moment, a skeleton charged forward, bringing its axe down. Leo quickly blocked the blow. Kazan, what the hell are you thinking? Leo's face showed a hint of worry. How am I supposed to fight this whole army by myself? Seeing Kazan charge, the man yelled, Fire, fire! He laughed mockingly. Too late! He unleashed his sea wave sword style. The archers below all had their hands sliced off. Using the momentum, Kazan launched himself into the air. The leader shouted, You little brat! He just clicked his tongue in contempt and slashed down. So annoying. In an instant, the man's right hand was severed. He fell to his knees, screaming in pain. Kazan landed in front of him and walked closer. If you're going to attack, you should be a little faster. The man groaned, You bastard! His eyes were filled with resentment. The Azure Fortress clearly doesn't have the spare forces to interfere in other territories. So, why? He suddenly remembered. That. Kazan suddenly remembered, the corners of his lips curling up. This barony is right next to my father's territory. Kazan reassured the man in a cold tone. Don't worry, I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to drag you back to the Azure Fortress. He glanced down, his eyes filled with admiration. Not bad at all. His cousin Leo was handling 13 skeletons all by himself down there. He muttered to himself, That's right. Worthy of the name Seawolf Sword. Just use brute force and crush them. That guy, his face twisted in a scowl, kept threatening. Do you really think you're going to leave here in one piece? Kazan finally looked him straight in the eye. What's your name? The man broke out in a sweat. Michael Knox. The moment he finished, Kazan plunged his guillotine into the man's leg. He screamed in agony. The archers above turned pale and trembled. He flashed a maniacal grin and ordered maliciously, Tell your men to drop their weapons. The man screamed, Throw down your weapons. Hurry up. He pulled his sword out, smiling smugly. Good boy, I like that. Michael glared at him with murderous eyes. To think we'd lose to a couple of brats. But when they arrive, not even you will be able to resist, even if you are from the Western family. Kazan looked down, sneering. Oh, sounds like you've still got plenty of room to talk. Kazan continued. Don't tell me you're pinning your hopes on that black mage, are you? He sneered. Do you really think my family would send just 2 children out on their own? After finishing off the skeletons, Leo wiped his sweat. The magic circle is gone. From behind, an earth-shattering explosion erupted. Kazan continued. Of course, they'd have a chaperone, wouldn't they? A large hole was blasted through the outer barrier. In any case, thanks to you all, I've wasted my time and let the black mage slip away. A female figure walked in. In her hand, she held someone's head. It was Savina. She walked in silently. Leo's face lit up when he saw her. Master Kazon's jaw dropped. Whoa, the Black Mage's head. She spoke in a cold voice. Kazan Reston, Leo Reston. Her voice was cold. You let the most crucial piece of evidence get away. As a result, this mission is a failure. Kazan clicked his tongue, then kicked Michael down. The man went sprawling to the ground. He stepped down after him. But this is just how you like it, isn't it, Master? Savina sighed in exasperation, charging headfirst into the tiger's den. You're exactly like your father. She tossed the Black Mage's head to the ground. For that, I'll give you credit. You are truly worthy of the Western family. She continued, however, this surprise hostage-taking stunt of yours is going to cost you points. Kazan sheathed his guillotine. Michael recoiled in horror at the sight of the Black Mage's head. She asked doubtfully, why did you resort to taking a hostage anyway? Kazan explained. I wanted to strike at their blind spot. Who would ever suspect a nobleman of taking a hostage? Savina conceded, on that point, I agree. She sighed wearily. Good grief. I've never met anyone like you. You're a true madman. He smiled. Thank you, Master. Michael trembled. These lunatics. Are they even nobles? She gave the order. Let's head back to Lord Bellis's castle. We have a lot to ask them. He obeyed. Yes, Master. Michael was terrified. Those damn Reston kids, they're all completely insane. Inside a prison cell, a soldier holding a torch yelled, Hey, over here! A man rushed to the bars, crying out, Isabel! The little boy replied, Dad! The two of them hugged each other tightly as the father wept. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you. The boy trembled. Dad, I was so scared. Watching from outside, Kazan turned to Auha with a complicated expression and said teasingly, Feeling a little guilty, are we? The man mumbled awkwardly. Well, Kazan nudged Auha's shoulder. Isn't it a bit early to be feeling guilty? Getting tossed in the Baron's dungeon with the rest of your pals might actually be getting off easy. The man flinched. What? Kazan explained. You and your boss are being sent to the Blue Sea Fortress. Auha panicked. What did you say? Savina approached, her arms crossed. Kazan, are you sure it's all right to leave him untied? He replied obediently. Yes, it should be fine for now. After all, we need someone to carry that other guy to the Blue Sea Fortress. Then he warned Auha, but don't you dare let your guard down. Got it. He hastily replied, Yes, sir. The father from earlier spoke up. Excuse me, my lord. Will he be punished as well? Kazan responded, Yes, technically he is also one of the bandits. The man asked timidly, If I may be so bold as to say something. He actually took very good care of us during our captivity. He secretly brought medicine to the sick and gave his own food to those who were hungry. Please, my lord, I beg you to show him leniency. Savina turned to Kazan. What are your thoughts? Kazan decided, for the time being, let's consider granting him clemency. He did lead us to their den after all. Moved, Auha declared, I swear to serve you faithfully for the rest of my life, young master. Kazan snapped in annoyance. I just told you not to let your guard down. From the floor above, Leo's curious voice called out, Kazan, you should come see this. Surprised, he looked up, his expression filled with curiosity. Kazan went up to investigate. What is it? Leo pointed. Look at this. He stepped inside bewildered and looked towards a crate emanating a blue light. His eyes widened in shock and wariness. This is a mana crystal. Inside the box were chunks of black crystal. Later, as the bandits were led away, the villagers shouted curses, saying the filthy scoundrels got what they deserved. Leo wondered, Kazan, the Lord, will probably throw a feast for us, won't he? Kazan, are you even listening? He was annoyed at being ignored. Right now, Kazan was lost in thought. Just as I thought. There has to be a reason why such a large group of bandits would hide out in the remote mountains of this barony. Bellos the Baron's family probably doesn't even know there's a mana stone mine in their territory. I don't know the quality of the stones yet, but the mere existence of the mine could bring in enormous profits. Leo looked at Kazan's face uneasily. What are you scheming now? Savina spoke up. Look, the Lord is coming to greet us. From a distance, Rio gave them a warm welcome. Welcome, everyone. Someone ordered, take the prisoners to the dungeon. Savina spoke up. My lord, we'll be taking that guy with us, the leader of the bandits. You don't have an objection, do you? He readily agreed. Yes, of course. Milady, there is something I wish to request. Savina was indifferent. I am only here as a guardian. Go speak with my student. Rio turned to Kazan and Leo. In that case, I've prepared a small feast. Shall we talk over the meal? Kazan refused. I'm sorry, but we must get to the Blue Sea Fortress immediately. Just tell us now. Rio was surprised. Is that so? Well, it's about the reward for the mission. Our domain is currently unable to pay the commission fee to the Blue Sea Fortress. Therefore, I would like to request a postponement of the payment. Kazan's face turned fierce, making Leo sigh. There's that look again. He smiled smugly. We were wondering why. The bandits would choose to set up a base in the barony of Bellis. Rio asked, confused. What do you mean? Kazan said scornfully. Just think about it. The barony of Bellis is a remote region. It has no local specialties. It's literally a village in the middle of nowhere, isn't it? Rio told himself, hold it in, just hold it in. He continued, his eyes sharp. As I thought, what they were really after was something else. Rio was puzzled. What do you mean? Kazan took out a mana stone. That's right, a mana stone. Are you aware of them? Rio was shocked. Not at all. I had no idea there was a mana stone mine in my domain. But Kazan gave a sly, triumphant grin, which is why I'd like to make a proposal. Rio repeated, a proposal. Kazan stated his idea. Let's have the Blue Sea Fortress co-develop the mine with you, on the condition that the Blue Sea Fortress will provide the initial capital and security forces. Rio was aghast, thinking, does this kid even understand what he's saying? Never mind developing the mine, the costs for storage facilities and maintaining guards alone would be astronomical. Just having a family like the Restons. Holding a stake in our mine could also bring great benefits. Could it be he calculated that I would think of all this? No. But who gave this kid the guts to negotiate such a huge matter on his own? He persisted, his tone full of confidence. First, I'll have to report back, but if the project is approved, the Seawave Night Order may be stationed here. That would boost the economy and solve the domain's defense problems in a flash. What do you say? Rio sighed. So, how large of a stake in the mine does the ducal house want? Kazan grinned. That's something you should discuss with my father. After all, a child like me isn't qualified to discuss business details. Rio nodded. I understand. I will discuss it with my father. He said politely, yes, I will be in touch soon. Savina, who had been watching silently from the side, sighed thoughtfully. Under the light of the full moon, Kazan's voice rang out clear and firm. Master, if I may ask, why did you say things could get complicated back at the bandits' hideout? She said casually, oh, it's because of this guy. Leo looked at Savina as she lifted a bag in her hand. Master, do you mean the dark mage you defeated? She explained, this guy isn't just any dark mage. Leo, I don't understand what you mean, Master. Savina explained, he is Tetel Hana, a Class 2 wanted criminal in the Empire and a six-circle dark mage. Kazan was startled. A Class 2 wanted criminal? She looked at him. That's right. A Class 2 fugitive running rampant in Imperial territory along with deserters from the Southern Kingdom, and yet you and Leo were busy dealing with small fry, without even noticing something so important. Isn't that right? Besides, people only get stronger by fighting powerful opponents. If you had taken down the Dark Mage first, you wouldn't have had to waste time on the small fry. That is why I consider this mission a failure. Remember this, Kazan said sadly. Yes, Master. Leo felt a pang of hurt. Why do I feel so left out? Suddenly, his name was called. And Leo. Yes. He turned his head startled. Yes, Master. Savina praised him. You did better than I expected. This was your first time facing the undead, wasn't it? You should have more confidence in yourself, she advised. Leo stood up straighter. Yes. At the Blue Sea Fortress, reports were ringing out urgently. The Lord has returned. Harry bowed respectfully. Welcome back, my lord. Harlow asked. Anything unusual to report? He reported, the knights deployed to the west have returned, sir. Young masters Leo and Kazan are currently returning from their mission in the barony of Bellis, along with Lady Savina. Harlow was satisfied. I see. Suddenly, someone ran up in a panic. My lord, he said in a cold voice, what is all the commotion about? My subordinate has brought a letter from the palace. Halo was stunned. A letter from the palace. His Majesty didn't say anything before I left the capital. He opened it, a look of distress on his face. He mouthed each word. Elsewhere. The train sped along the tracks at high speed. Halo was worried. His Majesty is personally summoning Kazone back to the capital. At a time like this, he was sitting on the train, his hand propped on the windowsill as he stared out into the dark night. At the station, the train was slowly starting to move. He was carrying the guy who had just been beaten, now weak, over his shoulder. The traitor spoke, his voice trembling. "Is this the Blue Sea Fortress?" The leader scoffed. Don't tell me you believed what that kid said. You're going to prison soon enough. Listen carefully. If we want to live, we have to wait until their guard is down. Before the guy could finish, he angrily threw a punch, shouting, "Shut up! You think I'm going to listen to someone who called me useless and deserving of execution?" Leo overheard the argument and wondered, what's wrong with him? Fail approached from behind with a sneer. Kazone was as noisy as ever. He walked over and put an arm around his shoulder, laughing. "He really is a strange one. Have you been well?" Savina replied. So. Fail, it seems your brother is calling for you. Fail stood up and shrugged. Probably because of the mess this kid made in the Baron's territory. Bellis teased him. You say that, but you look proud. Suddenly, Leo bowed his head politely. Have you been well lately, sir? Fail spoke gently. I heard Leo did a great job in the Duke's territory. The news has even reached my ears. I'm sure my brother has heard about it as well. He'll be very pleased. The boy scratched his head in embarrassment at the praise. Yes, Fio said tactfully. Everyone must be tired. Let's head upstairs. He and Savina paused behind the others to talk. She spoke up. Fio, the political situation in the Empire seems unstable. Do you know anything? He sighed thoughtfully. Fio replied. The powerful families aside from our own are quickly forming an alliance with the Duchy of San Mon and the Marquisate of Dai at its center. Father met with various noble families in the capital to get a grasp of the situation, but it seems he canceled everything after a rather unpleasant conversation with His Majesty. The Duchy of San Mon and the Marquisate of Dai, they were the key figures in overthrowing the tyrant and putting the current emperor on the throne. Now they hold the real power in the empire. Savina mused, my brother withdrew from the center of power after the tyrant was dethroned. He believed it was for the best for the empire's future, but who would have thought we'd be treated like this now? She spoke up. It seems the era of peace is about to end. He lamented, that's right, whether we want it or not. And it's time for our family to act. Savina's eyes glinted sharply. Perhaps what your son did will be to our advantage. It gives us a legitimate reason to station troops in another family's territory and expand our influence. Your son is quite interesting. He's done something beneficial for the family at just the right time. Fio scratched his head and laughed awkwardly. You give him too much credit. It was nothing so grand. Savina sneered condescendingly. I wasn't praising you. Their group approached Garrus. He praised them. Well done. I've heard about the achievements of you two young masters. You two took down a gang of bandits made up of deserters. Kazone pointed smugly. The one being carried over there is their boss. Garrus nodded. I see. We'll begin the interrogation while he's still on his last legs. We have to get everything we can out of him. Kazone Han, standing behind, asked, by the way, who's the one carrying the bandit boss? He turned his head in the direction of the finger and answered, oh, that guy. He's also a bandit. Take him away. The traitor pleaded urgently. Sir, Kazune instructed, but he was the informant. Show him leniency and release him later. I was thinking of making him my personal servant. The boy agreed. Garrus, I understand. Kazone waved his hand. Well then, let's go inside and rest. Garrus stopped them. Your mission isn't over yet. You two need to submit a report on this matter to evaluate the mission and improve future performance. Kazone was surprised. Sir Garrus, wait a minute. Don't tell me we each have to write a separate one. He relented. You two can write it together. He was delighted. Excellent. We've already done all the heavy lifting. You write it, cousin. Leo was confused. Wouldn't it be faster if we wrote it together? He put his arm around Leo's shoulder. Think about it, cousin. Once the report is submitted, Uncle will see it too, right? Just focus on writing about your own amazing efforts. This is a great opportunity to score points with Uncle. Leo was suspicious. Really? If my name appears too many times, it'll be counterproductive. Garrus sighed helplessly. Just go ahead and lock up the prisoners. Han accepts the order. Yes, Captain. Savina walks over and tosses him a bag. Garrus, this is the head of a wanted man. Take care of it. He took it surprised. She turned away. Bye. Also, just put the kid's report under my name to get it over with. After that, everyone dispersed. Kazone cheered. Have fun with the report, cousin. Leo asked Kazone, where are you going? He answered, the training room. I've reached the 4-star level. Now I can use it by myself. Garrus gave a faint smile and thought to himself, he just got back from his first mission and is heading straight to the training room. How can he possibly be a 13-year-old boy? He watched Kazone's confident figure impressed. Inside the palace, a majestic voice echoed, the reason I've summoned all of you so late at night is because of information gathered during recent hunts. More and more monsters have been appearing around the Azure Sea Fortress. Hearing this, Harry nodded. Yes, my lord. Halo ordered, summon the Knight Captain. Harry replied, yes. Garrus reported, I have brought the item you requested, my lord. He took it and observed it. This was a piece of skin taken from a monster that appeared in the Western Granary region. At first glance, it seems normal. Halo unfolded it for everyone to see. His voice was serious, but the dark energy in this piece of skin is anything but ordinary. It is the dark magic of the tyrant. The words were shocking. Raphael's face went rigid, his eyes wide. Theo was no better. Terrified, his face darkened. Theo, horrified, stammered out each word with a trembling voice. But the tyrant died a long time ago. If his dark magic is present in these monsters, then that means... Halo interrupted, his tone somber. There are two possibilities. Either his evil will lingers in this world, or the tyrant is still alive. But either way, my conclusion is that it's related to what is happening within the Empire. However, it seems that news of what happened in Baron Belos's territory has reached His Majesty. He has summoned Kazone to the capital. Theo was stunned to hear those words. His face also showed a degree of tension and solemnity. Halo crossed his arms, his gaze sharp and cold. But I cannot send Kazone to the palace alone. I intend to send Leo and the Seawolf Night Troop with him. He turned to Theo, who was still in shock. But of course, only if the boy agrees to go. Theo said indifferently, if he doesn't want to, I won't force him. He wondered if there were any other issues. It will be fine, Halo instructed. He's still just a child. More importantly, I need to know what that boy was thinking when he made that deal with young Baron Belos. Garrus, bring Kazone here. He obeyed. Yes, my lord. On a cool moonlit night, the air was unusually still. Kazone was sitting earnestly cultivating his magic. As his body absorbed the energy, he called out. When did you get here? Garrus, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, replied, I just arrived myself. Kazone slowly stood up. I heard that only family members and you, Sir Garrus, are allowed in here, but I've never seen you in this training room before. Something urgent must have come up for you to come all the way here, right? Hearing Kazone's speculation, he remained silent for a long moment. Then he spoke slowly. It seems the young master will have to go to the capital soon. Kazone, surprised and shocked, asked again. The capital. Garrus replied, the Lord has summoned you to a family meeting. You'll hear the details directly from him. After that, the two of them walked together without another word. A servant opened the door and announced, Young Master Kazone has arrived. Halo, sitting in a chair with his chin in his hand, replied, I hear you've successfully completed your first mission. He obediently replied, Yes, grandfather, but his eyes darkened with severity. I called you here because of the matter in the Belos territory. You do not have the authority to represent the family in matters of trade. Why did you take it upon yourself to make a deal with House Belos? Kazone mused, the corner of his mouth twitching slightly. I thought I was going to get praised for this, but instead I'm getting chewed out. He continued, Don't you think your arrogant attitude was a grave insult to House Belos? Kazone stated clearly, No, my lord, I simply proposed a deal to the future Baron of House Belos, that's all. He willingly accepted my proposal, and I believe there is something far more important than common noble etiquette. Halo was surprised. What? What could be more important than etiquette to a nobleman? Kazone's gaze was cold and firm as he enunciated each word, the honor of the family. That declaration made everyone in the room turn to look at him. He froze upon hearing that resolute statement. Halo looked at Kazone, thinking to himself, Considering the value of the deal, the boy could have easily used it to boast about his own achievements, but instead he chose to highlight the family's benefit. And take a step back. Truly an impressive display of shrewdness. Everyone in the room glanced at Kazone, silently assessing him. He looked back with disgust as the eyes of those two were still full of suspicion. Halo spoke up, cutting through the thoughts. All right then. After all, the deal you've brought back will bring immense benefits to our family. Theo, my son, you will handle the negotiations. It's not so bad for a father to ride on his son's coattails, is it? Theo replied cheerfully. Yes, father, I will leave for the Bellows territory first thing tomorrow morning. Halo, looking weary, closed his eyes and then opened a piece of paper. Now about the letter from His Majesty. The Emperor has summoned you. It seems your reputation has reached the capital. Kazan mused. The Emperor's letter reached the Azure Sea Fortress before Grandfather even got back. Is the Royal Intelligence Network really that incredible? He answered himself right after, no. The current Emperor is just a puppet. It must be the information network of those wealthy nobles behind him. The two looked at each other, each lost in their own thoughts. Halo comforted Kazan in a gentle voice. If you don't want to, you don't have to go anywhere. He guessed the boy must have understood the implications of going to the capital. The nobles in the capital must be eager to size him up right now. It's probably better not to attract any attention. That's why it's fine if he doesn't go to the capital. Theo looked at him, a faint smile forming on his lips as he wondered, Father, why do you even need to give the boy a choice? Kazan spoke up, his tone firm. The Emperor himself summoned me. Of course, I have to go. Besides, it's been a while since I've seen Grandfather. He looked at Halo. But, am I going alone? Your cousin Leo will be on the mission with you. Halo explained, if you go, Leo will go with you. On top of that, Han's squad will escort you two. Kazan was surprised. But my grandfather is already there. Is an escort really necessary? Halo's face scrunched up as he snapped. It's not that I'm spoiling your aunt. It's because I have no idea what kind of trouble you two will cook up this time. Kazan was at a loss for words. Yes, sir. He ordered, you two are dismissed. You will depart for the capital in 3 days. Kazan replied, yes, sir. Later that day, Rio's voice rang out warmly in the light. I believe we can conclude the negotiations here. He looked at Theo. Your Grace, thank you everyone for your efforts in the negotiation. Their meeting concluded. Theo then spoke, young Baron Bellis, does your father know about these terms? He nodded, assuring him, of course. My father agrees with them. He then analyzed, the mine shares are split 80% for Bellis and 20% for you, with the enormous profits from the magic stones. Even a small portion would grant you significant economic power, but I can't understand the clause that gives 5% of the Belus shares to Kazan and Leo. Isn't that extremely disadvantageous for the Belus family? I can't deny that those two kids handled your request brilliantly, but that is far too generous a reward. As an honors graduate of the Royal Academy, you must have your reasons for this, surely. It's too generous for a simple fee, don't you think so? Rio admitted, his tone full of playful mockery. It's to win over the two young wolves, Kazan and Leo. After hearing that, Theo fell silent. He's not even trying to hide his intentions, is he? He elaborated, Belus is making an investment. One day, one of these two children will lead the Azure Sea Fortress. Theo was surprised. He's that confident in those two kids' potential. He spoke aloud, is that so? Such a bold decision. Baron Bellis has raised a very capable son. Rio laughed with delight, his eyes sharp. I'm no match for you, Sir Theo, so then let's see what the children think. Hearing his name mentioned, Kazan put on a fierce expression and replied, of course, we... Seeing this, Leo flinched. Why is he smiling like that again? He then politely answered Rio, it is an honor for me to cooperate with such a great family. Later outside at the docks, Leo asked curiously with a long face, Kazan, I have a question for you. How are we supposed to split the shares we got? Kazan casually said, making him turn pale. Obviously it's 9 for me, 1 for you. Leo tried to argue, why do you get so much more? What? Kazan stepped closer, the corner of his mouth twitching into a smirk. Leo raised his fist as if he wanted to fight. Cousin, have you gotten tired of living lately? How dare you speak to me in that tone, huh? Leo, intimidated, said, no. Of course you should get the 9 parts. Kazan threatened him. If you go back on your word later, you'd better watch yourself. Got it. A frightened Leo agreed. Okay. Theo, watching from a distance, stroked his beard and smiled. Those two used to bicker all the time when they were kids, but now they're thick as thieves. He gave the two a warm smile. Leo exclaimed, "Wow, I can't believe it. We're going to the capital." He went on, "I've only ever heard stories. I don't know the first thing about it. What am I going to do?" From inside the room, Kazon's voice echoed out. "Cousin, will you stop acting like that?" Leo, sitting on a chair facing Kazon, continued, "But we're about to have an audience with His Majesty the Emperor. What's wrong with being a little dramatic?" "Oh, right." He covered his face shyly. "We'll get to go to social parties, won't we? I hear the capital is just full of beautiful women." Kazan sighed and muttered with a sarcastic look, "I'm speechless. He's not even—" Just then a voice came from the window. Savina said, "Dekus is a fascinating place. It's crowded and full of powerful warriors." Seeing her, Leo immediately asked, "Master, how did you get all the way up there?" She didn't answer him, only saying it would be a very good experience. Savina moved from the window and approached the table. "Don't you kids have any wine glasses? I came to congratulate you on your first mission, after all." Leo quickly stood up, offering his seat to his senior. Kazone retorted, "Master, are you really expecting to find wine glasses in a 13-year-old boy's room?" He also made sure to add that he only had water cups. She picked up a water cup and said calmly, "As long as it can hold wine, any cup will do." With that, she handed each of them a water cup. "I'll let Kazone off the hook for now, since he sneaks wine and drinks it all the time anyway." Leo took the cup, impressed by Savina's statement. Seeing the boy's expression, she asked him if he'd ever had wine before. Leo honestly said that he had. Kazone had let him drink a few times. Hearing this, Savina sighed. "So, he's already dragged you in as an accomplice." Kazone laughed gleefully. "Getting in trouble together is way more fun, right?" Despite his words, Savina poured wine into Leo's cup. "Here, Leo, take it. It's a gift from your master, so don't be shy." She also poured a glass for Kazan, saying they had both grown up splendidly. Kazone didn't hold back his praise either, saying with a proud tone that it was all thanks to Savina's guidance. When she finished pouring, Savina set the bottle on the table, her sharp gaze sweeping over her two nephews. "The 3 years I promised my brother are finally over." She added that she was a bit sad she wouldn't be able to witness firsthand the chaos the two of them would cause in the capital. Leo called out, choked with emotion, "Master," then said with tears in his eyes, "I heard you're returning to the North Sea soon. Does that mean we won't see you again?" Seeing his expression, Kazone sighed. Savina, looking at the boy's weepy sentimentality, had to speak up. "If you're going to be this emotional, how will you ever manage to talk to the ladies in the capital?" She also didn't forget to advise Leo, "If you ever get the chance to attend a party, it's best not to go with Kazone." Both of them were surprised. Leo asked, "What do you mean?" Savina spoke bluntly, her tone full of sarcasm. "With Kazone's good looks and that smooth-talking mouth of his, can't you guess what'll happen?" The image of ladies swarming around Kazone. Leo felt a chill just thinking about it. He walked over and shook Kazone by the shoulders. "Kazone, please don't stand in the way of my love life." Kazone yelled in anger, his face scrunching up. "What are you even thinking?" "You naive idiot." Seeing the boys getting noisy, Savina told them, "Just be quiet and drink." "That's right, cousin. Stop talking nonsense and let's toast." "All right, fine." By candlelight, in the silent dark night, Lord Halo sat drinking alone. There was a knock on the door. "Father." "Theo, come in." Theo entered and spoke respectfully. "You summoned me, father." "Yes, I heard the negotiations with House Bellows concluded favorably," Halo said, his tone pensive. "I didn't expect them to willingly give up a portion of their shares to Kazone and Leo." Theo agreed that the young baron's opinion carried significant weight. Theo then added, he called it an investment in the future. The Lord nodded. "Baron Bellows has raised quite a sharp son." "In any case, things went well. Gaining a strong ally isn't a bad thing," Halo said to Theo. "From now on, I am entrusting all matters related to House Bellows to you." Theo replied seriously that he would not let him down. The Lord poured a glass of wine and handed it to Theo. "Here, take it." "Thank you, my lord." Theo sensed there was something else his father wanted to discuss, as he was normally sparing with his praise. It was likely about Kazonin's trip to the capital. Just as he thought, Halo spoke. "Theo." As you know, he continued, His Majesty has never personally summoned any member of our family aside from myself. In that respect, Kazon's trip to the capital is highly unusual. Theo had guessed correctly it was about Kazon. Halo went on to tell Theo that during their recent private meeting, he saw fear in His Majesty's eyes when the king looked at him. It surely stems from the terror that I could depose him, just as I did the tyrant before him. And that is why I suspect another power is at play here. Theo asked directly, You believe there's a political conspiracy behind this? I do. Theo considered the political situation in the capital where powerful families are constantly colluding. He then asked, But surely you could have refused the summons, couldn't you? But you didn't. He replied that Theo was correct. He asked his father why. The reason, Halo said, is that I want to see just how capable Kazon is. This surprised Theo. Yes. As you said, Kazon is the one who was chosen by Guillotine, the sacred sword of our clan's founder. That means whether he likes it or not, Kazon is fated to stand at the very center of our family. And not only that, as a member of House Reston, Kazon will inevitably face threats from outside forces. Theo grew worried. The boy would be constantly facing countless dangers. That is also the reason, Halo said, why I did not refuse His Majesty's summons. Because to carry the future of this family, that boy has to be able to withstand that pressure. After saying that, he asked Theo, Son, are you worried? Theo downed the glass of wine in his hand in one go. Seeing this, the old man could only sigh and say nothing more. Just then, Theo took the initiative to speak. Father, he said firmly, I trust Kazon. Seeing his son's resolute attitude, the old man said nothing more. He let out a soft sigh, then smiled, trusting his son. A fine answer. The next morning, Savina and her horse started to head back. Garrus asked, Savina, aren't you going to see Kazon and Leo off? She thought for a moment, then replied, There's no need. I had a good time last night sharing your wine with them. He was helpless against Savina's answer. To think she wouldn't let up even on their last night. Savina added, Besides, the kids will be busy today preparing to depart for the capital. It's better to just leave quietly. Savina mounted her horse and said her goodbyes. Let's look forward to the day we meet again, Garrus. He replied, By then I'll be sure to have stocked up on more wine. Savina noticed someone on the upper floor watching her figure. It was Kazon. He gave her a slight bow in greeting. She smiled back at the boy but said nothing more as she prepared to ride off. Well, then see you again, Garrus. Savina had left Kazune a letter. I'm returning to the North Sea now. That place is like a home to me. So you can come whenever you wish. I'll be waiting for you with good wine. Kazon smiled as he recalled the letter's contents. The boy stood watching as Savina and her horse gradually rode away into the distance. He was also surprised that she would head to the North Sea with just a letter. Kazon thought that now that his master was gone, he guessed his uncles would start making their move. Just then, someone called his name. The person who called was Theo. I heard she left. Kazon was quite surprised to see him. Speak of the devil. The day came for Kazon and Leo to depart. The butler's voice echoed. The young master's luggage has all been loaded onto the carriage. Butler, what about their formal and casual attire? You didn't forget those, did you? Yes, we've packed them all. When Kazon heard Garrus's voice echo, he immediately asked, Sir Garrus, do we really need all this fanfare? But Garrus told him that the two of them were representing the family for an audience with His Majesty. So this is only natural. Well, that may be true, but... Kazone pointed behind him with dissatisfaction. Then why exactly is Han's team coming with us? But Garrus just calmly said, They are coming to protect you two. Han spoke up, Because they might cause trouble. Kazon immediately shot back, Shut it, Han. Kazon looked at the group annoyed. There were too many troublemakers around. Earlier, after Savina had left, Theo had come looking for Kazon. Good morning, sir. Are you well? Yeah, good morning. Theo asked, You two are on your way to the capital, aren't you? He replied, His Majesty the Emperor invited us. Before he could finish, Theo spoke up, his tone full of superiority. Sir Kazon, may I say something? Yes, sir. Theo warned Kazon. In the capital, don't behave as you did at the Blue Sea Fortress. You know what I mean, so I won't say more. Yes. Kazon knew Theo was openly admitting to having spied on him this whole time. He continued, There are many enemies in the capital trying to divide our family. if you give them any excuse. Then I, Theo, will personally punish you severely. Kazone chuckled, the corner of his lip twitching up, and replied in a sarcastic tone, My thanks for your golden words of wisdom, sir. But I will be sure not to disappoint your expectations. With that, he turned to leave. All right, then. Then have a safe trip. Yes, sir. Kazon watched his back as he walked away, not giving it a second thought. Kazon just chuckled and thought to himself, Dare to threaten to punish me severely. I can't stand Theo's attitude, trying to take me down just because you're the eldest son, but I'll wipe that arrogant look right off your face. Just you wait. Just then an announcement rang out. We are ready to depart. Kazon pointed at Han and said in a taunting voice, Han, if you cause any trouble, I won't let you off the hook. Han also spoke up wanting to say, Actually, there's something I want to talk about. Just then, Auha ran over from a distance. Young master, what's wrong? He spoke up thanking Kazone for giving him the opportunity. Oh, that. Kazone gave a wicked smile and said bluntly, I'm taking him to the capital to throw him in jail. What? Kazone said, his face scrunched up. I told you not to get greedy. At that moment, Han was informed that everyone was already on board. Han said goodbye to Garrus. Commander, I'm off. Kazone was still teasing Auha. Young master, please don't abandon me. We'll see how you behave. Garrus advised the two of them. Don't cause any trouble in the capital and come back safely. Kazone said sarcastically, with all this advice, people might think we're a bunch of professional troublemakers. Garrus retorted bluntly with a wry smile. Well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Kazon just clicked his tongue. As he was about to board the ship, another voice called out. Theo ran over from a distance. Kazon, wait a minute. Kazon looked at his father and asked, Father, weren't you at the Blue Sea Fortress? Theo, drenched in sweat and breathing heavily, said, Your grandfather summoned me here. Besides, he said, I wanted to see you one last time before you left. Those words took Kazone by surprise, and Theo added something more. And your grandfather in the capital is also very much looking forward to your visit. Kazone replied, I also want to see him soon. Theo smiled warmly. I bet your grandfather has a whole mountain of fruit prepared for you. Theo patted Kazone's shoulder. His words were gentle but also very firm. Come back safely. And if you're going to cause trouble, try not to go overboard, all right? Hearing Fio Leo chuckled softly, Kazone shot him a glare. What are you laughing at? Theo, sitting in the room, looked out the window. He gazed at the book in his hand and said quietly, The young ones are gone. Theo's face was grim. He had just received news that the wives of the two princes were plotting something in the capital. Theo said to his subordinate, Tell them to stay out of it. At last, the train departed. As soon as he was on board, Kazone eagerly asked, Excuse me, when exactly will we arrive? Han, how much longer until we reach the capital? Han replied softly, In about 6 hours, sir. We'll be passing through the autonomous territory of Thebes. According to Leo, Thebes is a unique city where the commoners elect their own mayor, and it has developed through commerce and industry rather than agriculture. That's where the most money in the empire circulates. Han continued for Kazone because their money is synonymous with social status. Their enormous wealth allows them to have great influence within the empire, so the lords of other regions always have to be wary of them. Kazone thought for a moment, then said, I've heard that sometimes local people flee to the autonomous territories to escape tyrannical lords. Yes, but they have a friendly relationship with our Blue Sea Fortress. According to Han, they sometimes even give large contracts to the Sea Wave Knight Division. Hearing this, Kazone said he wanted to visit once if he got the chance. At that moment, the train announced its approach to the autonomous territory of Thebes. He added that he would sneak out to explore after his official schedule was done. That idea made Leo want to join in too. Just then, Kazone felt something unusual. Gothan was reacting to something. It was emitting a pulse of energy. Gothan is reacting. That means it has detected a threat. He looked at the sword in his hand, his eyes sharp. Could it be that Theo or Raphael planted someone among the servants? No. He considered the sword as he thought, No, they aren't foolish enough to be that reckless. At that moment, Han called out to him. Kazone thought, if that's the case. He then said to Han, contact Commander Zabeth immediately. Why such a sudden order? Han was bewildered as Kazone stood up more resolute, his eyes filled with a murderous aura. No time to explain. Alert the other cars. Prepare for an attack. Han had no idea what was happening, but he could only obey. He quickly notified all the attendants to prepare for an attack. Kazone thought if the threat is external and not internal, then how the hell can they attack a moving train? A cloaked figure stood outside holding a rope. He looked towards the moving train. He ordered his subordinate begin. Hearing the order, his subordinate took action. They intended to light a fuse to detonate something up ahead and endanger the train. Seeing the train approaching, he urged, "They're coming. Hurry up!" The subordinate watched the fire spread towards the oil barrels. "It's done. Everyone prepare for the explosion. Yes." By now, the train was very close, its front just meters away from the fuse. A deafening, earth-shattering explosion erupted, sending birds scattering in panic. In the territory of Thebes, a heated argument was raging. A despairing cry rose from the crowd. "The national tax is crushing us to death." Another voice cut in mockingly. "Serves you right for getting caught money laundering." The back and forth grew more intense as the two factions attacked each other fiercely. "What was it, just us? Like you're so innocent. Who do you think you're pointing your finger at? Huh?" They pointed accusingly at each other. A demand was thrown at the mayor. "You have to deal with these criminals right now." A sharp retort came immediately. "What? Who are the criminals?" The mayor clutched his head in agony. He thought, "I knew I shouldn't have come here." The argument dragged on endlessly. "You really can't reason with these commoners." The mayor sighed, looking at the chaos. "I should have just retired after my term as Minister of Finance. Why on earth did I take on this mayoral position?" The man beside him watched in silence. The mayor thought reality is much crueler than I ever imagined. An accusation was hurled at the nobles. "Oh, so you nobles are so high and mighty, you even steal our bidding rights." For mana stones. A contemptuous counterattack erupted. "What? Watch your mouth. How dare a commoner be so insolent?" The room had become a battlefield of social classes. The mayor clutched his head again. "Isn't this just a complete mess?" Suddenly the door opened, and a stranger entered. All eyes turned to him as he whispered to the mayor. The mayor replied, "I see." The mayor signaled for the man to leave. The man obeyed. "Yes, Mayor," someone piped up curiously. What urgent news could possibly interrupt a meeting like this? Could it be about the tax inspection? The mayor calmly lit a cigarette. "Don't worry, the tax inspection is nothing to worry about now." The crowd began to murmur, asking rapid-fire questions. "What do you mean? Has the tax inspection been canceled?" The mayor smirked. "Not yet. Let's just drop the old issue." The other man grew impatient. "What is it? What the hell is going on?" The mayor announced the shocking news 5 minutes ago. The Western family's train en route to the capital exploded. Horrifying details followed. "I heard the Duke's grandsons and we're all on that train." Someone reacted strongly. "What the hell are you talking about?" The mayor gave him a cold, sidelong glance. "What am I talking about?" The mayor dropped a pill into his glass of wine. "What else could it be? It means we're all screwed." Kazone's train car was overturned, smoke billowing. He awoke amidst the wreckage, stood up, and surveyed the scene. Han was there with Leo and the others. Han asked, "Sir, are you injured?" He replied lucidly, "No, just a light scratch." Han asked for an update. The casualty reports poured in 11 casualties, 1 seriously injured and 2 with minor injuries. The seriously injured one was Dantoa. Another report added 2 more casualties. Listening to the reports, Kazone realized the situation was truly serious. He turned to Han. "Do you know our current location?" Kazone asked. Han replied, "We're about 10 kilometers from the Gerbit Autonomous Territory. I managed to contact them before you and Leo woke up, so reinforcements should already be on their way." Han urged Kazone and Leo to flee. "While my team holds them off, you and Leo have to run far away." Han looked at Kazone with pleading eyes, insisting, "Do you understand what I'm saying?" Kazone completely ignored Han's words. He noticed his sword guillotine was vibrating. His eyes fell to the ground, where he spotted the feet of a stranger outside. He gripped his sword immediately, taking a defensive stance. He knew this was the sign of an attacker. Kazone drew his blade and replied to Han, "I'm sorry, but I can't do that." Han was stunned. "Sir, why not?" Kazone explained slowly. Their crime was destroying the railroad, a valuable asset of His Majesty. "Their crime is no different from treason. How far do you think we could get? My cousin's leg is injured too." Kazone asked Leo, "You can still fight, right?" Leo gripped his sword and grunted in confirmation. Kazone concluded, "In that case, there's only one thing to do, isn't there?" Without another word, K-Zone charged out to attack. He shattered the leg of the man outside and gave the order, "Slaughter them, kill them all," before finishing off the man now kneeling before him. The leader watched in silence, muttering quietly, "Well, well." The three of them stepped out of the train car to face the crowd. K-Zone remarked, "There are more of them than I thought." Squad commands rang out. "Squad 2, dismount. Protect the young masters." Their men charged in, balancing the numbers. Han analyzed the enemy warning. These are all skilled warriors level 3 or higher. Not to mention their leader. Han looked at the level 6 commander, who spoke up. "K-Zone Reston," he called out. Drop your weapons and surrender." K-Zone realized his voice was magically distorted. Seeing that K-Zone didn't reply, the leader continued his attempt to persuade him. "If you cooperate peacefully, we'll spare the lives of your knights and servants." K-Zone asked Han discreetly, "Han, I'm their target. You know what that means, don't you?" A panicked Han tried to stop K-Zone. "No way, young master. You can't." K-Zone stepped forward regardless, challenging. "And why not?" "They're no match for me." Han watched, helplessly sighing. This is such a headache. K-Zone took down the first man, and the two sides clashed. The battle exploded, the sound of colliding swords echoing all around. K-Zone was a whirlwind of fighting spirit in the midst of the battle, fearing no one. He immediately ordered an all-out assault, but the enemy soldiers didn't move. K-Zone taunted, "Not coming." "Then I'll come to you." A soldier whispered, "Damn it, that kid is the real deal." His comrade replied, "I know. This wasn't in the contract." The leader looked at K-Zone, his eyes sharp and cold. He ordered, "All of you back off." He assessed that K-Zone was deeper and more unpredictable than he looked confident he could handle him himself. K-Zone sounded intrigued. "Oh, so the leader finally decides to show his face, does he?" Suddenly, Han's figure flashed forward, blocking the leader. Protecting K-Zone, he said, "He's a tough opponent. Young master, please step back." The leader sneered, "You're just asking to die." Han replied resolutely, "Try me and find out." The two of them charged into a fierce clash. Han attacked without a hint of fear, while the leader calmly waited for a chance to counter. The shriek of their swords colliding was deafening. Amidst the tense atmosphere, Han noticed something unusual. The leader glanced slightly, and Han immediately slashed down, but the leader dodged with expert skill. Feeling that power, Han knew his opponent was no ordinary man. Han grew suspicious. Don't tell me he's a 6-star knight from the kingdom of Basakimi. But why would a knight from their kingdom be in the Empire, especially with the non-aggression pact? Han continued to wonder. Why are they targeting Kajin when the kingdom of Basakimi and the Western family have no grudges against each other? In any case, the tide of the battle was turning in their favor. The soldiers, along with Leo and K-Zone, were easily wiping out the henchmen. "I'll figure it out later," Han thought. Pulled from his thoughts, he saw the leader preparing to counterattack. He managed to block the surprise attack just in time. The leader sneered, "You have time to get distracted." Han retorted, "Your formation has collapsed." Sakimi, he thought to himself, launching a relentless counterattack that forced the leader to fall back. The two were evenly matched. Han advised, "Resistance is futile. Surrender." The leader was skeptical. "You say my formation has collapsed." He looked back to see that his subordinates had been completely wiped out. He realized, "I see. So that's how it is." Han tried to persuade him, "If you surrender, we'll at least spare your life. You don't have to die in a foreign land." The leader refused. "I have no intention of reasoning with those who don't understand. I will just focus on completing my mission." Han saw his eyes turn bloodshot as his mana vessels ruptured. A violent backlash of energy erupted as he charged forward. Han's face grew grim at the ominous sight. He thought, "Don't tell me he has no intention of making it back alive." The tension rose. Han worried that if he couldn't be captured alive, the young masters would be in danger. His only choice was to release his own mana. The leader transformed into a blazing fire dragon and lunged. Han closed his eyes, preparing to unleash his power. Just then, K-Zone's voice suddenly rang out from behind the enemy. K-Zone chided, "Han, I'm a little disappointed in you." K-Zone continued, "Didn't you come with me to stop me from causing trouble?" Startled, the leader spun around as K-Zone leaped into the fight. K-Zone asked Han, "And yet you were already about to give up." The leader's attack abruptly changed targets. He screamed, "Karzon Reston!" Karzon replied, "Yeah, that's right. I am Karzon Reston, as a single decisive sword strike severed his arm. The arm and the sword it held fell in front of Han. The leader growled in fury, cursing, "Kazan Reston, you're a monster." Kazan laughed heartily. "Is that supposed to be a compliment?" "Thanks then." But Kazan suddenly froze as his execution blade began to tremble violently. He knew this signal well. It warned of a new threat. Kazan snapped, "You bastard. What other tricks do you have up your sleeve?" Han frowned with worry as a strange killing intent filled the air. The leader said, "I have no grudge against you. My apologies, Kazan Reston." But Kazan remained suspicious of another trick. Suddenly, Han realized something was wrong and shouted. Han commanded, "All units protect young Master Leo." Leo was stunned as the squad immediately formed a protective circle around him. Han dashed toward Kazone, who asked, "Han, what is this?" "Just sorry, the Why is he doing this?" Han explained. "The leader is casting a self-destruct spell. It's my fault. My incompetence." Han apologized. I'm sorry, young Master Kazone." Even Kazone hadn't anticipated this move. The energy erupting from the leader grew more violent than ever before. Han prayed, "So please, I beg you, just survive." A terrifying explosion struck immediately after. Han watched the explosion spread, and then a strange voice echoed. The sword whispered, "What a foolish master. It's been a while since I've tasted a knight's blood, so I'll lend you some mana." The voice echoed in his subconscious, making Han shut his eyes tightly against the blast. Someone called his name. Kazan kicked him. "Han, get up! How long do you plan to lay there like a lump, huh?" Han shot back, "You damn brat, I went to the trouble of shielding you, you know." After the leader's self-destruction, Han's entire body was still aching. Seeing Han struggle, he snapped, "Did I ask you to save me?" Amidst the tension, the sword's voice rang out again, playing the hero. It bragged, "Without me, this wouldn't have ended so neatly, you know." Han lifted the sword to question it, and it continued, "You nearly didn't have a shred of flesh left on your bones. So you'd better be grateful. Hey, are you listening to me?" He thought, "Could it really be a demon sword?" The sword snapped. "A demon sword," he asked back. "So it's not a demon sword. I heard that swords forged by mad smiths using souls as material can talk like you." It grew furious. "How dare you compare me to those cursed demon swords? Say that again and I'll take your head clean off." He scoffed. "If you chop my head off over something so trivial, why did you save me just now?" The sword retorted, "You pitiful fool, if I hadn't wasted my mana saving you from that explosion just now. I would have sliced your neck clean off a long time ago." Han took a defensive stance, afraid the sword would fly into a rage and cause more trouble. "Careful!" Han warned, "more enemies." A man raised his hand, stopping him. "Be still. Rest assured, I am not your enemy." The sword was still grumbling. It whined, "Be grateful, I used up all of my stored mana." "So exhausting." With a serious expression, he asked, "Can you only absorb mana by killing enemies?" The sword replied, If you'd prefer, I could just draw mana from your blood instead." Just then, a knight galloped up on his horse. "I am Hiri, captain of the Thebes Autonomous Territories Civil Defense Team," he announced. Han sheathed his sword, thinking, thirsting for blood. It really is a cursed sword after all. Han returned the greeting. "Greetings, I am Han, vice captain of the 2nd Squad of the Hylon Knights." The sword cut in, "Wait, master, the sheath is." "You won't be able to talk to me anymore." Annoyed, he replied, "Oh, really? That's fantastic. Then shut up and go to sleep." It cursed silently. "You bastard." Han explained, "This is the nephew of Grand Duke Halo Karzan Reston." Here he said gravely, "The Thebes territory is deeply sorry for the incident you all have faced. But by order of the governor, we are here to provide a safe escort for the members of the ducal house." He replied curtly, "I understand." He then added, "We'll be in your care then. We have many wounded." They boarded the carriage. He stared out the window, chilling as Han pressed him. "Young Master Kazone, are you certain you don't want to return to the Azure Sea Fortress?" "I'd say, is the defense team and the knights will stay to investigate, but there's no telling when they'll have answers. It's too soon to say the threat has passed." He retorted bluntly, "I already told you it's fine. I already contacted Lord Garrus before we left. Lord Garrus is likely on his way here now. Han, you're always worrying about nothing. That's your problem. The royal guard from the capital should have departed by now." So don't worry too much. More importantly, do you know who the one who self-destructed was? Han replied silently with his arms crossed. That person. He was a 6-star knight from the Ba Kingdom. Kazan's expression darkened. He repeated gravely. Kazan mused, the Ba Kingdom, it seems, and the Empire. The Ba Kingdom. Could it be that Grand Duke Halo's non-aggression pact is already crumbling? This is more complicated than I thought. He frowned. Han added, the relationship between the Empire and the Kingdom has indeed worsened. But not to the point of pulling a stunt like this. Kazan turned to Leo and asked, even so, this incident alone is enough to ignite a war, don't you think? Leo stammered, yeah, you're right. I'm really sorry. I didn't quite hear you. My hands. Why are they like this? Kazan frowned and reassured him, it was your first time killing someone. It's understandable. Taking another person's life is never easy, but you have to overcome it, cousin. That's just how life is. Here he ran to the window and announced, we're about to arrive at the autonomous territory. Kazan looked outside and exclaimed, holy damn, it's gorgeous. A bustling city with magnificent architecture appeared before them. Leo agreed. I'll say. A man with a bright smile waved to welcome them. Welcome to the autonomous territory of Thebest. We're truly relieved that you've all arrived safely. Robert will do everything in his power to find the one behind this incident. Of course, we will fully cooperate with the Western family's investigation, Kazan cut in, stating firmly. I know Thebest has nothing to do with this attack. Han added, that's right. Mayor Green, you can rest assured. Mayor Green hesitated and asked, Is that so? Han looked puzzled and asked, you seem completely different from when you were the Minister of Finance. Mayor Green sighed. Don't even mention it. If I hadn't accepted this damn mayoral position, he thought to himself, oh God, I'm speaking so carelessly in front of the Duke's esteemed guests again. Kazan chuckled cheerfully and said, please feel free to speak comfortably, Mr. Mayor. I feel rather uncomfortable hearing an elder use such formal language with me. Mayor Green waved his hands in a panic. How could I possibly speak informally to the scion of a great Grand Duke? Kazan joked. Perhaps you should show your sincerity by kneeling then. Startled Mayor Green quickly corrected himself. I am very grateful and accept your kindness. Yes, Kazan. Then let's go somewhere else to continue our discussion. Kazan maintained his smile and agreed. Yes, let's do that. Once inside, Mayor Green exclaimed in surprise, smuggling. Kazan patiently explained, the attackers destroyed the railway tracks with explosives, not mana. You know that it's impossible to obtain explosives without going through the Weapons Supply Bureau. Correct, Mayor Green stammered. Yes, that's true, but... Before he could finish, Kazan spoke. But the Weapons Bureau is under the strict control of the Empire. Therefore, the existence of explosives outside of it is nearly impossible. But what if the explosives were smuggled into the Empire from the outside? For example, explosives manufactured in the Ba Kingdom. Mr. Mayor Green froze, startled, and admitted, that makes sense. Only the Empire and the Kingdom can produce explosives of that quality. Kazan pressed on, asking, if some of Thebest's merchant guilds were involved in such smuggling, would that be a problem for you, Mr. Mayor? Mayor Green remained silent, observing him internally, amazed at his sharp reasoning. Then he voiced his agreement. Indeed, just as you said, Kazan smuggling seems to be the most plausible theory. Kazan smiled and asked, isn't it? He thought, if you don't agree, you could be suspected of being an accomplice. Thanks to those smuggling fools, it's easy to put others on the spot. He added, Mr. Mayor, you only need to remember one thing. Mayor Green asked, and what is that? He replied sternly, members of the Sea Serpent Engineer Corps and the Azure Sea Fortress suffered casualties in this incident. Mayor Green froze thinking, so they're using this as an excuse to pick a fight with the Western family. The kind of people who repay a favor 10 times over and an offense 100 times over. If I don't cooperate, I'm done for. For now, I need to change the subject. He asked with concern, how has your maternal grandfather been lately? Kazan frowned and asked, you know my grandfather? Mayor Green laughed and explained, of course, your grandfather and I were sworn brothers back in the day. Kazan went, oh, and let out a laugh, thinking bringing up old connections out of nowhere. Such a politician. Sweat beading on his brow, he stammered, well, it's all about connections and money, isn't it? Someone rushed in, calling out, Mr. Mayor, urgent news from the capital. Mayor Green said flatly. If it's about the royal guard having departed, I already know. The man pale-faced reported, It's not just the royal guard. The director of the tax bureau himself has set out leading Squad 1. Mayor Green turned back in astonishment, exclaiming, The director of the tax bureau? He's the man known as the Demon King. He asked, trembling. Sir Jill Ferryton is coming in person. He looked at Kazan in a panic. Kazan, you anticipated this, didn't you? His body trembled. Kazan gave a smug smile and replied, Yes, he adores me, you see. He'd drop all his work to come and save his grandson in distress. In the autonomous territory of Thebes, people were enjoying their day when suddenly a solemn procession of knights passed by, led by none other than Jill Ferryton. In a narrow alley, a pair of furtive eyes watched, remarking, Since it involves his grandson, he was bound to arrive quickly. At the mayor's office, a crowd had gathered, shouting loudly about the sudden tax audit. Mayor Green, trembling with rage, yelled, You scoundrels have gone too far. Don't you realize how serious this is? He slammed his fist on the table. Gilbert strode confidently into the middle of the street, shouting, Mayor Green was right, and I'll add another heavy blow. It's not just His Majesty's railroad that's in ruins. Grand Duke Western's grandson and the Blue Sea Fortress crew were also caught in an explosion and are now suspected of smuggling with the Joseph Merchant Guild. How could this happen? Do you all understand the problem now? The panicked crowd looked at each other. A man who had been watching from the shadows stepped forward and said softly, Sir, what we wanted to say is, You should give us more time to prepare. Kazone raised a sharp eyebrow. The man flinched and quickly introduced himself. I am Viscount Haya of the Haya Merchant Guild. Kazan smirked, his voice dripping with malice. I see. I'll be sure to pass your name along to the director of the tax bureau, who also happens to be my grandfather. The man panicked, his voice trembling. I misspoke. Please, sir, be lenient. Just then, the door opened and an announcer called out, This is Squad 1 of the tax bureau. The director is now entering. The crowd fell instantly silent, their eyes fixed on Jill Ferryton as he entered at a leisurely pace. Jill Ferryton pointed a finger at them and barked sternly, From this moment on, your merchant guilds will be subject to a tax investigation. The tax bureau has received reports of illegal profiteering through smuggling and tax evasion. His Majesty the Emperor has ordered a full-scale investigation. You are required to cooperate fully with this investigation. Kazan smiled faintly and sighed. He thought his grandfather looked more like a soldier than an official. Leo turned to Han and asked, Hey, Han, is Squad 1 really that scary? Han explained concisely, Squad 1 specializes in handling the major merchant guilds and the nobility. Given who they have to deal with, they can even mobilize the royal guard. Leo chimed in, If you don't pay your taxes, they'll beat you half to death. So yeah, they're terrifying. Leo jumped when he saw Gilbert right in front of him, grinning. It's been 3 years, Kazone. Are you still doing well, my boy? Kazone replied respectfully, Yes, grandfather. The two of them went out to the garden where his grandfather asked again, Are you sure you don't need a checkup? Kazone thought the question was a bit odd, but he let it go. The two left the crowd and stepped into a quiet flower garden. Jill Ferryton asked again, Are you sure you don't need another checkup? Karen Reston answered immediately, Yes, I'm fine. His grandfather's expression turned serious again. Do you suspect who the mastermind is yet? Karen replied with a smile, Not yet. Jill Ferryton rested his chin on his hand in thought, then concluded, It's definitely not an internal family affair. Karen Reston shook his head vehemently. If it were my uncles, they wouldn't have left even a single trace. Unlike the people behind this incident, they intentionally left clues because they want us to conclude it was the work of the Baba Kingdom. They didn't even bother to hide their identities. Jill Ferryton placed a hand on his head and said in a serious tone, Karen, do you intend to find the culprits and punish them yourself? His grandfather objected. It's not that I doubt your talent, but the world is a vast place full of powerful and dangerous people. Dangers are still lurking right here. So you will stay put, and we will go to the capital tomorrow morning. When he didn't answer, his grandfather continued. His Majesty has ordered it as well. The adults will handle this. Karen Reston chuckled. Yes, grandfather, I'll be good. Then he turned his head and stared straight ahead. Jill Ferryton looked at his grandson and thought to himself, Oh dear, you have absolutely no intention of keeping that promise, do you? And indeed, Karen was now smiling, sinisterly. Meanwhile, at the manor, servants were bustling about. Hurry up and move it. That's the last shipment." Suddenly, a man stepped out of the house and yelled, "Why haven't you all left yet?" They replied immediately, "We're just about done." A woman in the carriage asked worriedly, "Honey, aren't you coming with us?" He reassured her, "Don't worry, I'll be right behind you, my love." Then he signaled for the servants to leave at once. They replied, "Yes, my lord." From inside the carriage, an urgent little voice called out, "Daddy, we have to go. Hurry!" The man silently watched the carriage go, then let out a curse. Just then, an observer on the rooftop reported, "We've evacuated the family first." A voice on the other end of the radio asked, "And the pursuit?" He replied, "They're on it." The man then turned and went back inside. He gave an order, "All right, continue with the cleanup." The servants replied, "Yes, my lord." Back with Karen, he was carefully wiping his sword, when late at night someone entered and saw him. "Cleaning your sword at this hour. Are you trying to start something?" Without stopping, Karen frowned slightly, thinking, "He just got here and he's already nagging me." Garrus stepped closer. "I heard the director has forbidden you from going out." Karen shot back, "Are you here to stop me too?" Garrus replied, "I am merely here to deliver an order from the head of the family." He cleared his throat. "I will convey it now. Listen carefully. Kazan, youngest grandson of House Reston, hear my words. Upon receiving this order, you are to hunt down the perpetrators and repay the debt in blood for our fallen. Show them the laws of the Blue Sea Fortress." A shiver ran through Karen as a smile spread across his face, and he raised his voice. "I humbly obey the head of the family." He gripped his sword tightly. Garrus sighed. "I have a bad feeling about tonight." Leo's worried voice cut through the bustling street. "Kazan, do we really have to go this far?" He answered immediately, "If you want information, the black market is the place to be, isn't it?" Leo hesitated. "I mean, I understand that, but why do I have to play the part of the servant?" "Let me explain. We're heading to East Zabbat, a place overflowing with illegal dealings. If a young noble wanders around without a servant, he'll immediately arouse suspicion." Leo rubbed his head, his voice tinged with even more concern. I get that part. But why am I the servant?" "Quiet down," Cajon reassured him. "We're almost at the place he told us about." After walking for a while, the two entered a pitch-black alley. Leo looked around fearfully. "Cajon, this place feels so creepy." "If you're scared, you can go back right now," he replied. "This isn't a place for young masters." Before Leo could finish, he was startled by something up ahead. A person in a black cloak stood between the walls, and as their voice rang out, the appearance of this person meant both of them had to get on guard. And Cajon quickly gripped the hilt of his sword, ready to fight. The other person introduced themselves. "Hello, I was sent by Lord Garrus. It is an honor to escort you young masters. My name is Julio." Julio removed his hood and said, "Shall we get moving?" A safe hideout had been prepared. They arrived at a slightly ajar iron door. After they stepped inside, he said, "There are soundproofing artifacts in here so you can speak freely." Cajun looked around and said, "It must have been tough for you here." Julio replied, "I'm a local of the best." Cajon asked, puzzled, why would someone from the best work as an intelligence agent for the Western family? Julio answered honestly, "I am simply repaying a debt to Lord Jarrus." Cajon smiled. "I see. Then let's get straight to the point, shall we?" Julio replied immediately, his expression turning grim. "Of course." Cajon began. "The people who knew we were heading to the capital and attacked the train with smuggled explosives. Do you know who they are?" Holding a book, Julio replied, "Yes, from what I've gathered. There are several groups dealing explosives on the black market, too, to be exact. One is the Julio group, and the second is Caligo. However, the Julio group has already solidified its position in the best, and they are gradually withdrawing from the black market." Taking the book, he asked, "And what about Caligo?" Julio replied, "They are a group of former slaves. They'll do anything as long as there's money in it." Furthermore, a source reported that members of Caligo left the city this morning. Cajun frowned slightly. Leo asked, "This morning, that's when we were attacked, right?" He confirmed, "That's right. This is highly suspicious. Caligo former slaves who would do anything for money. The Julio group who are withdrawing from the black market." Leo asked, "There isn't enough time to investigate both. Who should we choose?" He gave a confident smile. "The answer is obvious, isn't it? Those with nothing to lose are always the most reckless. We'll go to Caligo." Then, Julio proposed. I will lead you to Caligo's black market. At the green residence, a worried voice spoke up. Sir, are you really comfortable letting Cajon go alone? Jill Ferryton frowned. The boy's grandfather personally sent a letter requesting this. What other choice do I have? Green added, They say a wolf cub carves its own path. Actually, young Cain asked a favor of me. Jill Ferryton let out a, Green said he wanted me to hold you back at any cost. He planned to act alone whether the Grand Duke gave permission or not. That boy is unbelievable, Gilbert said with concern. Don't worry too much. Green comforted him. Cajon has already proven his strength after all. Gilbert replied, Even so, he's only 13 years old. Green said, For a genius age is just a number. But this is the best? Gilbert said, still worried. A place where danger can strike at any moment. Some merchant guilds are buying power by funding the Central War Front. Your father-in-law chose to stay at the border while other families in the capital try their best to hold us back. This place is filled with people willing to do anything to gain favor with the great families. That is the best, and that is precisely what I'm worried about. It's also for this reason that the Emperor must intervene in Zabit, so the Empire isn't steered by the personal interests of such people. Green sighed wearily to himself. I thought I'd be able to live out my final years in peace, but never mind that. Jill Ferryton instructed, For now, let's just wait for Cajon to complete his investigation safely. Green suddenly remembered, There is one more thing you should know. Mason is down in the kitchen. Jill Ferryton was astonished. What the indestructible shield, the 8-star Knight Mason? I wonder what that could mean. Back in the alley, Julio said, We're here. Before the opening door, Cajon asked apprehensively, Is this the only entrance? Julio confirmed, Yes. He surmised, so in an emergency they can seal it from the inside. How ruthless. Inside, Julio took a book from a shelf and a passageway appeared. Cajon was impressed. This place is the very definition of a black market. Julio asked, Shall we head down? As the three of them descended, Leo leaned in close and said cautiously, He said it won't be easy to get down there. Cajon let out a, Down below, 2 people were already waiting. Seeing Julio, one of them asked, Julio, long time no see. What's up? Julio gestured towards Cajon and Leo. I brought some customers, the other man said coldly. I know you only deal with high rollers, but unfortunately, we're not accepting customers today. Get lost. Julio was surprised. Why is that? The man replied, Orders from the boss. Julio asked, Can you at least give me a reason? The man said coldly, We don't know the reason either. Leave while we're still being nice. A man in the back drew a small knife on guard. Cajon sighed and asked, What's this? A sword. You planning on cutting us down with that? Leo whispered fearfully, Young master. But Cajon had already gripped his sword hilt, challenging them. Go on, try it. Let's see what happens. Leo was frantic. Cajon said, Draw it if you dare, come on. Leo pleaded, Let's switch to plan B. Cajon looked bewildered. Leo was shocked. A plan B? We don't have one of those. The 2 men prepared to attack. Cajon and Leo were equally ready, gripping their sword hilts tightly. The tall, knightly man grabbed his hilt, his expression vicious and threatening. If you won't listen to reason, this is the only way. However, the man with the eye patch beside him advised, Hold on. Wait a minute. Across from them, Cajon had already begun to draw his sword. At that same moment, a voice suddenly echoed in his mind. Stupid master. The sword's voice continued its critique. Let me tell you something. I have no damn interest in the blood of scum like that. Surprise invaded his mind as he heard those words. Cajon immediately questioned it. You haven't even left your scabbard yet. You can already speak. The proud voice of the sword explained. As long as my master's hand remains on my sheath, I will speak. Nothing more needs to be said. Cajon focused his entire mind on the blade swinging cleanly to cut the tall knight's sword in 2. Afterward, he curled his lip in annoyance and retorted to the sword. How convenient, you damn cursed sword. After just one move from Cajon, his opponent's sword was broken in half. Witnessing this, the blindfolded man immediately raised his sword defensively and roared in anger. What kind of trickery is this? The words had barely left his mouth when his eyes widened in terror, because Leo had transformed into a blinding flash of light, tearing through the wind to attack from the side. Julio remained calm, observing the entire scene. Unsurprised, he silently assessed. As expected, the skills of the Reston's young wolf are on another level. As for Leo, he followed Kazone's example and decisively broke the blindfolded man's sword. Once it was done, he turned to reprimand him. "Young master, a little warning next time, please." He paid no mind to the reprimand, instead focusing intently on Leo's technique before praising him. "Your swordsmanship isn't half bad either, huh?" Ura glanced discreetly at the two of them. A thought crossed her mind when Sergeris patrolled the streets of the best. Was it really just for sightseeing? Beside her, Kazone raised his sword, pointing it directly at the two men before them. As he spoke, his voice filled with excitement. "So then I think we can start the hostage drama now, don't you?" Hearing this, Julio was startled and whipped his head around to look at him, horrified. "Take a hostage." He couldn't believe his ears, thinking to himself, "What did you just say?" Julio was dumbfounded, a high-ranking noble resorting to taking hostages. He could only watch as Kazone kept his sword pointed at the two men, threatening them. "Do you really think you can walk out of here alive?" After this, Kazone remained composed, his gaze as sharp and intimidating as a blade. "I'll deal with that myself." Suddenly, from a design on the blindfolded man's armor, a voice echoed. "That's enough. Stop." Hearing this, he frowned slightly, thinking to himself, a woman's voice. From the two knights' side, the voice continued full of authority. Can you please stop tormenting my subordinates?" Hearing this, Kazone let out a casual, mocking laugh. So, the leader of Caligo actually cares about her people. Who would have thought? The leader of Caligo affirmed without the slightest hesitation, "Of course I do. They have been through life and death with me." The two knights looked at each other speechless. The voice continued firm and resolute. "Therefore, I can't just let them be bitten to death by some wild young wolf." Hearing this, Leo shuddered slightly and said in a low voice to Kazone, "It seems she knows who we are, young master." Before he could reply, the leader gave a decisive invitation. "Come inside." He replied with blunt suspicion, "That sounds nice and all, but there isn't enough trust between us yet, is there?" With that, he pointed his sword directly at the blindfolded man's neck and declared, "So your precious subordinate will have to be my hostage." Even as the hostage situation escalated, the person on the other side didn't flinch, instead letting out a smirk. "Just as the rumors say, you really do have a thing for this hostage game." Amidst the tense atmosphere, the leader of Caligo calmly decreed, "I will be waiting with pleasure. Julio, please show our guests the way." He maintained his calm, final boss-like composure. He grabbed the hostage's armor strap tightly and jutted his chin. "You heard her. Let's go." The man trembled uncontrollably and replied, "Yes, leader." At that same moment, in a completely different place, the bright moonlight shone down on a huge, luxurious tycoon-style mansion. Inside, suddenly, a red alert-style conversation echoed. "The 8-star Mage Mason is in the kitchen." "Yes, sir." Green looked at the person next to him, his face pale with fear as he confirmed. "So, that means that person is with him too, right?" Green hesitated for a moment before mumbling, "Yes, probably so." Upon hearing that Jill Ferryton's face darkened, he thought to himself, "The Emperor's rebellious, illegitimate son. The 6th Prince Revelio is in the best." The older man witnessing this looked completely lost. He asked tentatively, "What are you worried about, sir?" Gilbert glared at the older man and slowly explained. His Majesty personally dispatched Sir Mason from the Imperial Guard and tasked him with protecting the 6th Prince. At this point, he became doubtful and continued to ask, "But isn't he known for his unpredictable movements?" Green, however, was completely unconcerned and stated flatly, "He's a mage. He probably just came to the best that market that sells all sorts of strange things just to do some shopping." He took a gulp of wine, then fretted as if drama was imminent. "I'm just afraid he'll run into Kazone." The older man quickly tried to reassure him. "Surely nothing will happen, right?" Gil Ferryton glanced at Green, his face twisted in annoyance. "But Kazone is—" He trailed off, then let out in exasperation, "the type of guy who, if there isn't trouble, will go out and find it himself." The older man was left speechless, unable to argue. Meanwhile, back with Kazone, he was dragging the blindfolded man to the room, shouting loudly, "Show the guest in!" Despite that, when he entered, he froze completely stunned. The first thing that hit his eyes were two figures who were already waiting. His gaze was fixed on the item on the face of the seated man. He thought warily, a golden mask. The man saw him enter and, sitting up straight, spoke up, "Cajun Reston." With one hand gripping the hostage tightly, Kazone thought to himself, "He knows me." But what caught his attention even more was the hulking guard standing there. The man in the golden mask, seemingly unaware he was being ignored, stood up and gave a grand greeting. "To meet the famous Carzone Reston in a place like this." He ignored the babbling man, his eyes glued to the one who had been standing stock still the entire time. He thought, "The magic I feel from the man behind him, it's the power of someone who has reached the master level, on par with Master Sabina or Sir Garrus. There can't be that many masters of that caliber in the Empire. Who could he be?" Leo, of course, also sensed something was off and whispered a warning, "The man behind you." He glanced back at Leo and nodded grimly. "He's no ordinary opponent." Kazan stared intently at the man in the golden mask, his voice dripping with suspicion. "Don't tell me you're the leader of Caligo." The man immediately denied it. "Nope, I'm just here to see my sister." Kazan frowned skeptical. "His sister, so the leader's younger brother?" The man replied cheerfully, like a child. "Let's just say we're sworn siblings. Anyway, it's a pleasure to meet you." But Kazan didn't let his guard down for a second. He mulled over the phrase, "sworn siblings." Then Kazan stared intently at him. His tone was threatening. "Unbelievable. So that means—" Before he could finish his sentence, he shot forward like a flash, attacking with his signature sea wolf sword style. Both Leo and the man with the eye patch behind him were completely startled by this unexpected move. Only Julio sighed and shook his head in exasperation, as if to say, "Here we go again." But the man in the mask, now captured by Kazan, was grinning from ear to ear. He didn't show the slightest fear as he spoke. "Look, Mason, I'm a hostage now. How cool is that?" This person continued with amusement. "This is more interesting than I thought, isn't it? Good thing I came right." Meanwhile, Kazan was carefully scrutinizing his appearance, golden eyes and jet black hair. He only heard the man speak up. "So what are you going to do now? Demand a ransom? Threaten to kill me?" He paid the man no mind, lost in his own thoughts. Kazan glanced quickly at the guard who had been standing silently this whole time and surmised an 8-star knight named Mason. "Then the person I'm holding," Kazan concluded with certainty, "is the 6th prince." But the man in the golden mask, unaware that his identity had been exposed, was still excitedly making suggestions. "How about this? Why don't we go overthrow the Imperial Palace?" Hearing this, Kazan looked up at him, completely shocked, thinking to himself, "Overthrow the palace? This guy is completely insane." Just then, a woman appeared from another door. "I was only gone for a moment, and you've already switched hostages." Kazan looked at her, completely surprised, wondering, who is this? The woman looked directly at him and asked calmly, "How about you explain the situation?" Hearing that, Kazan went along with it and replied, "I switched to a slightly more valuable hostage. What do you think?" After hearing that, she scoffed and replied, "I doubt our house's price is quite as high, is it?" She placed the tea tray on the table and then questioned him, "By the way, why the sudden use of formal language?" He answered calmly, "Because you've always been my elder, haven't you?" Kazan's eyes were now filled with wariness as he scrutinized the woman before him. He thought he could feel an immense magical power emanating from her. As if pondering something, Kazan glanced at his current hostage. And a similar magical power from this guy, too. They're both mages. He shifted his gaze back to the woman. His mind was racing as he deduced, of course the one over there is on a much higher level. By now, she had turned to face Kazan directly and spoke as if making a declaration. "If you came here to find the source of the explosives used in the attack on the Reston family," Boya stated bluntly, "it wasn't us, so lower your sword. And let's start talking." Kazan kept his grip tight on his sword, his voice full of suspicion. "How can we trust you?" Hearing this, she sighed and raised her hand, gathering energy in her palm. "If I were the one who attacked the Reston family, it would be too careless. I wouldn't have left any evidence." Witnessing this, he cautiously assessed her. Terrifying magic. She's at least a 7-circle mage. Across the room, Leo stared at the woman in terror. Boya looked at Kazan, her tone relaxed as she inquired, "So, are you ready to talk now?" Kazan fell silent. In a dark room with 2 masks placed on the table, she poured tea and said in a low voice, "Let me make this clear. The explosives from the Reston family attack were not distributed by us. It's true we deal in explosives, but only for Revelio's experiments. She offered him the cup of tea she had just poured. Hearing her, he furrowed his brow and asked, "So, was it those KRD bastards?" She explained softly, "Oh, that bunch of cowards. They don't have the guts to do something this audacious." Suddenly, Kazan turned away annoyed. "Your Highness, would you mind removing your hand?" Revelio quickly raised his hands, his voice teasing. "We're just friends messing around." "Why so tense?" He chuckled, pointing to himself. "From now on, just call me Revelio to be more friendly." Kazan turned away in disgust, muttering, "Friends my ass." Suddenly, a displeased voice sounded from above. "You better watch how you speak to the prince." Revelio turned to look at Mason. "Mason, don't be so uptight," he said in a low voice. Mason crossed his arms and sighed. "I never imagined my brother's youngest son would be this crazy." Kazan frowned, observing the man as a suspicion flashed through his mind. "He knows my grandfather, too." A moment later, they heard the woman speak up. "Now then, shall we return to the main topic?" She smiled at them, tilting her head in greeting. "My apologies for the late introduction. I am Poya, the leader of Caligo. It is an honor to meet the two young masters, the grandsons of Grand Duke Halo, the greatest hero on the continent. As I said, the explosives from the attack on the Reston family were not ours, but we can tell you who they belong to." "Who is the culprit?" Boya hesitated, then continued. "However, there is one condition." Holding his teacup, Kazan wearily mumbled, "Knew it." Then he looked at her. "Just say it." A thoughtful glint appeared in Boya's eyes as she brought the teacup to her lips. "My condition is that you must befriend Revelio Arielino." She finished and looked at them. Hearing this, Kazone glanced at Boya and asked in a low voice, "Getting mixed up with the royal family is just asking for trouble, isn't it? The son of a duke consorting with a prince. What do you think the world will gossip about? Isn't it obvious? That kind of relationship would never be seen as a simple friendship." Hearing this profound analysis, Revelio looked at him innocently and exclaimed, "So what? It's perfectly normal for kids to be friends with each other. Besides, this will only benefit Duke Reston. There's no harm in it at all, right?" Kazan shot him a sideways glance and asked, "Benefit us how exactly?" Revelio hesitated. "Well, obviously the Western family is about to make its move. What else? Think of this as a warning shot to the royal family and the central aristocracy. Don't you see?" Hearing that, he silently cursed him. What an absolute lunatic. Then Kazone asked, "But why do we have to go to such lengths?" Prince Revelio smirked conspiratorially. "It's because I'll do anything that makes my father miserable. My dream is to be a son from hell, got it?" Cajon's face was filled with helplessness as he looked at Revelio. He's completely insane, he thought. After a moment, Boya looked at him and asked, "So, what's your decision?" "The nights in Thebest are long, but we don't have much time today." Kazan picked up on that detail and asked suspiciously, "Don't have much time? What do you mean by that?" He watched her expression, wondering, "Are you suggesting?" She explained calmly, "This is a case where the grandsons of the esteemed Duke Western's family were attacked, yet the royal guard has made no significant moves. Haven't you ever wondered why?" Kazon's expression darkened. He hesitated. "Don't tell me. Are you saying the royal guard is working with the culprit?" At that, Boya stood up and replied, "That answer depends on the culprit. What's clear is that the royal guard's objectives are quite different from yours, young master Kazone. This document records the culprit's movements and everything related to it. So what's your decision? Will you accept my proposal?" Kajan's eyes followed Boya's figure. He remained silent. The sky grew dark. On the street by a cargo wagon, one man urged, "Move faster." From upstairs, an angry voice roared, "Can't you go any faster?" The man replied meekly, his voice full of fear, Yes, sir, I'll be quicker." He looked down and cursed, "Damn it." Oyen gazed down, coldly calculating, "Once the objective is complete, the royal guard will be dispatched to clean up all the evidence, so there's no need to worry. When this is done, I will grant you the noble title I promised." The other man replied, "Thank you, sir. I will do my best." Oyun covered his face with a scowl, muttering to himself, "He's acting like he's about to get his dream position. The one who's supposed to be cleaned up is that brat from the Duke's house. Those damn Duke's kids," he thought. And they still survived the attack. Thankfully, my family was evacuated ahead of time. Suddenly, a man ran up to report, "Sir." Startled Oyun looked at him and asked, "What is it?" He reported news that made Oyun freeze. "The knights. They've just entered." Unbelieving, he repeated, "Knights." Oyun's face went pale. He worriedly guessed, "They're here already." Then trembling, he asked, "Is it the royal guard?" Before the man could finish, a voice filled with disgust echoed from the doorway. The Oyun residence is certainly diligent, isn't it? Still working at this hour." The man glanced over in terror and said, "It's not the royal guard." Kazan walked in, a sword slung over his shoulder. He stated coldly, "Your family is so busy, isn't it?" Oyun looked at him suspiciously and replied, "You're one of Duke Reston's men." He looked at Oyun, pointed to himself, and said coolly, "That's right. And you're the garbage they want to get rid of. And hey, for someone who's so intent on taking other people's lives, you seem to care a whole lot about your own family, don't you?" Out of nowhere, another person appeared. He was holding a bag and said, "Young master, I've brought what you requested." Kazan looked at him and replied gently, "Thank you." Oyun stared at the two of them and stammered, It can't be." Kazan held up the bag and looked at Oyun, his voice laced with irritation. "This you curious want to see." Oyun's face went ashen. He trembled in fear and said, "Don't tell me. My family." Seeing Oyun shaking uncontrollably, Kazan replied coldly, "If you're so curious, then just look." Terrified Oyun collapsed to the ground with a pathetic cry. He slowly opened the bag, looked inside, and gasped in horror, wailing, "My family, my family!" At some point, Kazane had moved next to him and slapped him. Oyun cried out, "Look closely and stop making such a racket. Do you really think those calloused hands belong to your family?" After a moment, Oyun regained his composure and stammered, "Then..." Kazan glanced down at him and explained, "These are the hands of the assassins your partner sent to eliminate your family." Oyun was silently relieved. He looked at Kazan joyfully and said, You saved my family." "Thank you," Kazan replied coldly. "You're celebrating far too soon, don't you see? You conspired with the masterminds who attacked my house, and people died because of it. The ones who saved your family are innocent, but you are guilty. You will spend the rest of your days in the dungeons of the Azure Sea Fortress. Endless torture is a certainty." He turned to Garrus. "Sir Garrus, take him away." Garrus replied in a low voice, "Yes, young master." Meanwhile, elsewhere, Poya watched Revelio carefully hold his teacup and began, "I hear the Emperor's health is failing. How are things in the capital?" Revelio smiled faintly after hearing Poya. He noted that the nobility was in a state of intense turmoil, while the old warmongers were openly delighted. So while the rest of the nobles are in chaos, only a few of those hawkish old men are having a field day. After she said that, Revelio continued to listen to Poya's analysis. She spoke of the escalating tensions within the royal guard and the ever-deepening rift between the opposing factions and their allies. The internal conflict within the royal guard is growing more tense, and the divide between the war faction and their allies is deepening. Still, thanks to you, we now have a trustworthy ally. Am I? Revelio replied doubtfully. Why me? Mason, who was standing nearby, mulled over Poya's words for a moment before speaking up. He believed that Kazan was captivated by Revelio's charm. The guardian Mason mused aloud. Kazan is completely captivated by your charm, isn't he? Poya seemed a little puzzled by Revelio's reaction. She said that when she first met Revelio, he wasn't like this at all. When I first met you, you weren't like this. Suddenly, Revelio's expression grew somber. He hesitantly began to recount a part of his turbulent past and the dangers he had faced. It's the truth. The moment I escaped the palace, intrigues, and made it to Thebestan, I was nearly assassinated. If Sir Mason hadn't been there, I would have died right alongside my mother. If I hadn't met you in the city, I never would have learned magic. I am who I am today because of the two of you. And Kazan. He will also become someone important to me. Meanwhile, in a room in the castle, a displeased voice rang out. What do you mean by that? Kazan and Revelio had devised a plan together. They both believed that the family of Grand Duke Halo, the continent's most celebrated hero who had long remained in the shadows, was about to make a move. In the luxurious room, two men with displeased expressions questioned him in unison. You intend to publicize the family's affairs. That the Reston estate was attacked along with all the details of the investigation. One of them continued voicing his concern over the damage to the family's prestige, and the possibility that all the blame will be shifted to Thebestin. Son, if this gets out, our family's honor will be at stake. Have you thought this through? Are you really planning to pin all the blame on Thebestin? Kazan sat across from them. He answered with calm confidence, explaining that Green wouldn't be the one held primarily responsible. Rest assured, the mayor will not be the one to take the fall. This will simply make it impossible for the perpetrators to deny their guilt any longer. The mayor will become a righteous leader, one who stands up against injustice. Hearing this, the man seemed flustered, surprised by the explanation. Is that so? Suddenly, Garrus recalled Halo's instructions. Give Kazan full authority to handle this matter. Garrus had responded to Halo with obedience. He looked down at Kazan now, his expression unreadable, wondering what the boy was planning. But since it was an order, he spoke with conviction. Yes, my lord. Please trust me this once. Garrus hesitated for a moment, then decided to simply observe how things unfolded. The first light of day was spreading. The morning sun crept into every corner of the magnificent castle. A soldier reported in a quiet voice, Sir, a letter from young Master Kazan has arrived. Halo sat in the main chair, taking the letter to inspect it. The boy intends to announce the damages from the attack and the results of the investigation. The butler stood straight, his hands clasped behind his back. He confirmed Halo's words. Yes, that is correct. A moment later, File stood at the door and bowed to Halo. Father, you called for me. Without looking up, Halo told File about the message he'd just received from Kazan, then asked for his son's opinion. The message just came from Kazan. It reports that a member of the Zabit Council involved in the attack has been arrested and that the council has pledged its full cooperation to prevent this from happening again. What do you think? File took the paper from Halo's hand. After being informed of Kazan's actions, he carefully reviewed the report before hesitantly voicing his concerns. This plan could shatter the political balance in Jordan. Fundamentally, aren't we just handing power to the mayor of Jordan, who until now has been a figurehead with no real authority? Halo listened to his son's accurate assessment. He nodded and, in a low voice, shared his own strategic thinking. He mused that the council members had held control for a long time. But exposing a council member's ties to terrorism will send a massive shockwave. He acknowledged that while Kazan could be bold this time, he had retaliated in a truly spectacular fashion, significantly increasing our family's influence. Yes, until now, the council members have always held overwhelming power, but publicizing a member's connection to terrorism will deal them a fatal blow. The boy can be reckless, but this time he has exacted his revenge magnificently. And now our family has extended its influence over Zabit. File then spoke up looking troubled. He expressed his gratitude for Halo's high praise of Kazan's abilities, but he was still worried about the pressure being placed on him. A 13-year-old. Father, I am grateful that you appreciate Kazan's capabilities, but he's only 13. Isn't placing such a heavy burden on a child asking too much? Suddenly, Halo cut File off. He reminded his son of the importance of believing in Kazan, saying that a person must walk their own path, no matter how difficult it gets. It's natural to worry, but it's trust that keeps one's will strong. File, weren't you the one who said you have to trust your own son? A wolf must walk the path of a wolf. It's natural to worry about a child who's just stepped into the wilderness, but why not do as your son said? Trust him until the end. Hearing Halo's words, File was completely convinced. He affirmed that he would place his complete faith in Kazan. Yes, father, I will trust my son until the very end. Halo continued in a low voice. He thought about the political repercussions that would spread. He judged that this incident would be a stern warning to the corrupt individuals in the central government, including the Imperial Guard factions trying to cling to power. He believed that if a powerful individual were to discover this decay, that person would surely act without mercy. He instructed File to prepare for a turbulent period because the time for House Raiston to reemerge has come. In any case, this incident will serve as a sharp warning to the corrupt ones in the central government, including those hunting dogs of the Imperial Guard clinging to power. The Imperial Guard, those power-hungry fools. If that person saw this, he would surely chop off all their heads. File, prepare for the coming storm. The time has come for House Raiston to act again. File replied in a low voice, affirming that everything would be prepared meticulously. Yes, father, I will get everything ready. Dusk was approaching once again, casting an orange-red glow over the scenery. From a large square, a voice echoed everywhere, expressing shame for the incidents that had occurred in the city. My fellow citizens, I am deeply ashamed that such things have happened right here in our proud city. The speaker continued exposing the actions of a councilman who for a little more power tried to assassinate the grandson of the continent's greatest hero, Grand Duke Halo. The people below stirred, murmuring amongst themselves. Then they began chanting Green's name, demanding he take decisive action to eliminate the corrupt councilman. Green, Green, get rid of those rotten councilmen. That's right. On the podium, Green was ecstatic. He shouted his promise to return the city to the people and affirmed he would devote all his strength. Green will return this city to its people. I promise I will give it my all during this time. 3 people were standing on a balcony observing the entire scene. Leo exclaimed as he saw Green's enthusiasm, "He's like a fish in water now." Standing next to Leo, Rin spoke up. He commented on Green's political skills, saying, "A good politician never misses a favorable opportunity." But Green is an excellent politician, Leo. A great politician never misses an opportunity given to them. Leo was stunned. He looked doubtful and asked about the politicians in the capital. Are all the politicians in the capital like that, sir? Rin smiled gently at Leo and replied, explaining why Green was able to achieve such a high position. Of course not. The reason Green climbed so high is because he has the skills to match. After the events unfolded, a citizen spoke with admiration. So the mayor's no pushover, huh? Rin silently turned his attention to Kayan. In his thoughts, he couldn't help but be amazed that such a sophisticated plan was orchestrated by someone who was only 13 years old. He thought that Halo, the head of House Raiston, must have truly recognized Kayan's potential. Rin thought that Kajin might soon be on the list of heirs for House Raiston. However, he told himself that whether that was truly a good thing for him, or not, only time would tell. Suddenly, Kajin called out to Jill. Jill looked gently at Kayan and replied in an affectionate voice, "My dear grandson, what is it?" Kajin observed Gil's expression and timidly asked, "Are you all right, grandfather?" Gil looked puzzled and asked Kayan back, "What do you mean?" Kajin sadly voiced his thoughts. "You've been dragged into matters concerning the interests of House Raiston. Mother told me that you don't like to get personally involved in political issues. I was wondering if you broke your own principles because of me." Suddenly, Jill walked over to Kajin and sat down. He called Kajin's name in a tone that was both firm and kind. "Sometimes there are moments when you are forced to break your principles. Besides, this time, it wasn't really breaking them. His Majesty also intended to restrain those in power in Thebest. So don't you worry, this old grandfather of yours is just fine." Kayan still looked uneasy and called out to his maternal grandfather again. Jill's eyes shone with determination. He gently reassured Kayan and offered a piece of sound advice. Then he said he had something to do before returning to the capital. "If one day you have to do the right thing and your principles stand in the way, don't hesitate. Just break them. I have something to take care of before heading back to the capital, so I'll be leaving first." Kajin smiled at Jill and replied, "Yes, sir." Beside him, Leo added, "We'll see you later, sir." After Jill left, Leo suddenly asked Kayan, "Hey, Kayan." Kajin, looking puzzled, let out a small, Leo, while looking down below, asked Kayan doubtfully, "Why did the mayor's words get that crowd so excited?" Kajin also directed his gaze downwards and then answered Leo, "It's simple. The market has decreed that the old powers shall be crushed." Green clenched his fist excitedly, shouting the name, "The Best." A moment later, Kazan hesitantly added, "When those entrenched powers collapse, it will open up opportunities for those who come after. And that's something to be happy about, isn't it?" Hearing Kazan's explanation, Leo smiled indifferently and said, "Even so, I still don't understand." Kazan looked at Leo and said pointedly, "That's because you grew up as a pampered pretty boy in a glass cage, cousin." The sky began to sink into darkness. From the second floor of the building, a teasing voice called out, "Look again! Your sister is the richest one in our family, you know. It's been a while since we sparred. Want to have a match, cousin?" The full moon had risen high, illuminating the mansion. A cheerful voice remarked that it was an excellent speech. The two men looked at each other excitedly, joyfully responding to one another. "Mr. Mayor, thanks to you, JB is full of life again." It's all thanks to young Master Kazan for giving us a just cause. Isn't that right, Kazan? Hearing this, he lightly touched his hair as if accepting the compliment. Well now, if you say so, then I have no choice but to accept. Green replied in a low voice, thinking he was merely stating the obvious, then switched to asking about the Seawolf Knights. No, I'm just telling the truth. Am I wrong? By the way, young Master Kazan, what about the Seawolf Knights? Kazan smiled. He announced that reinforcements had already been dispatched from the Blue Sea Fortress. Reinforcements have already been dispatched from the Blue Sea Fortress. Hearing Kazan, Mr. Green laughed heartily, remarking on the decisiveness of House Western. As expected of House Western, your decisiveness is truly admirable. Nearby, Leo was sitting. He watched the exchange between Kazan and Green, helplessly muttering to himself. So, this is politics, huh? Suddenly, Green became pensive. He chided himself for his carelessness in keeping Kazan for so long. He should have been preparing for the trip to the capital tomorrow. Oh dear, how careless of me. I should be preparing for the trip to the capital tomorrow, yet I've kept you here for so long. Kazan lowered his voice to reassure Green, saying they had something they wanted to give him. It's all right. Actually, we have something we'd like to give you. As Mayor Green looked at Kazan suspiciously, he asked about the gift. What is it? Kazan acted mysteriously. He said it was nothing grand, but Green would need some capital to accomplish important things. It's nothing much. But won't you need a bit of capital to get big things done? Green saw the coin Kazan offered and stammered excitedly. Kazan winked mysteriously and said this money was taken from the profits that Leo and he had earned at the Mana Stone mine in Baron Bellis's territory. He added that it was their little secret. We took this money from the profits Leo and I earned at the Mana Stone mine in Baron Bellis's territory. This is our little secret, okay? Mr. Green looked at Kazan and Leo with a fond expression and thanked them. He said the two of them were the only ones who truly thought of him. Thank you. You two are the only ones who actually think of me. Leo, sitting beside him, trembled and whimpered, wondering to himself when he had ever agreed to this. Dawn broke. A new day began. The carriages were fully prepared for departure. Garrus reported in a low voice that the luggage was almost fully loaded, and the escort to the capital would be handled by the Imperial Guard. The luggage is almost fully loaded, young master. The escort to the capital will be handled by the Imperial Guard. Hearing Garrus, Kazan replied with annoyance. He said being escorted by the Imperial Guard didn't sound exciting to him. The Imperial Guard, huh? Doesn't sound fun at all. Garrus looked at Kazan and respectfully reported that this had been approved by the head of the family. Suddenly, Leo hesitantly asked if Garrus would be going with them. Since Hanzo is injured, Hanzo's injured now. So, will you be coming with us, Sir Garrus? A moment later, Garrus glanced at Leo and explained softly. He said he would love to go with them, but had been assigned another task, and Hugo would take over as their escort in the capital. I would very much like to accompany you, but I've been tasked with escorting prisoners and the wounded. Instead, young Master Hugo will be responsible for your escort in the capital. Hearing Garrus utter that name, Kazan's expression tightened. He thought that his plan to cause chaos in the capital now had an unpredictable element. Hugo Reston, son of his eldest uncle, the doctor, a genius who had reached the 6-star threshold at only 28 years of age. Kazan pouted and grumbled irritably. He said there was nothing about this that he liked. There's nothing I like about this at all. A moment later, a flashy carriage sped towards them, and a voice from inside called out Kazan's and Leo's names. A woman leaned her head out, waving to Kazan and Leo. She asked, Cousin Leo, have you kids eaten breakfast yet? Kazan looked at the carriage and spoke helplessly to Garrus. He suggested they not go to the capital anymore. Sir Garrus, how about we just don't go to the capital? Garrus reluctantly refused. That won't be possible. In front of the house. Revelio had the carriage stop and got out to talk with Kazan. He asked how Kazan felt about going to the royal capital together. How does it feel going to the royal capital together, huh? Are you happy, Kazan? Hearing Revelio's question, Kazan simply replied nonchalantly, Not really. Then he dubiously called Revelio Prince. Not really, Prince. Hearing Kazan call him Prince, Revelio burst out laughing, his face beaming with joy and pride. Just as I thought. Are you uneasy about being escorted by the royal guard? Revelio then said confidently, Given your complicated relationship with House Reston, it's understandable. But don't worry, you have me, your prince, along for the ride. Suddenly, Revelio saw someone approaching. He exclaimed with delight, "Just in time." The person was a young man. He stood facing everyone respectfully, placed a hand on his chest, and then explained, "Your Highness, please forgive us. We were late because we had to deal with the sabotaged railway." Revelio didn't seem to care much about the reason. He gestured towards Kazone and Leo, then made the introductions. It's fine. First, let's get acquainted. These are the nephews of Duke Reston." The young man named Da replied dutifully, "Yes, sir." Immediately after Da formally greeted Kazone and Leo, he introduced himself. "Hello, my name is Da. Please feel free to just call me Da." Kazone met his greeting. He calmly replied, "All right." Even though Kazone and Leo were staring at him, Da remained composed. He expressed his honor. "It is an honor to escort the nephews of Duke Western to the royal capital." Upon hearing Da's words, Kazon said nothing. He pondered, recalling what Poya had once said. Poya's words in Kazon's mind. "Have you ever wondered why the royal guard wasn't actively investigating the attack on the ducal house?" At this, Kazon's voice turned serious as he questioned Da. He asked, "Is the investigation into a sabotaged railway so important that you'd ignore an attack aimed at the nephew of House Reston? Is the investigation into the sabotaged railway really that important? An attack aimed at the nephew of House Western, a ducal family that has aided the royal family, and you just disregard it?" Da's expression was unfazed. He replied to Kazone instantly, "Sabotaging the king's property, the railway is no different from treason." Da spoke with a detached tone. He asserted, "The royal guard must of course prioritize investigating an act of treason." Kazone couldn't believe what he had just heard. He repeated the words, "Treason!" Kazon smirked, a very insincere smile spreading across his face, and then retorted, "If that's the case that you all were busy with other matters, I suppose we'll have to accept that for now." Just then, Revelio let out a sigh and cut into the conversation. He urged everyone to depart. "All right, that's enough of that. Let's get moving." Unlike his attitude towards Kazone when Revelio spoke, Da immediately became respectful. He replied to the prince, "Yes, your highness." Witnessing the whole exchange, Garas placed a hand on Kayan's shoulder. He praised him. "You controlled yourself very well, young master." Garrus looked at the group of royal guards, his expression filled with caution as he explained. He advised that until they knew who was behind the attack, they shouldn't create a hostile relationship with the royal guard. Kazon also turned to look at the royal guards. Then he calmly replied to Garrus, "For now." Kazon thought to himself. He vowed that even with only circumstantial evidence so far, if he could prove the royal guard were puppets for some powerful family, he would crush them with his own hands. As if sensing Kazone's gaze, Da turned his head to look back. Kazone didn't flinch. He stared straight at Da, making a solemn vow in his heart. Such a prestigious organization. The royal guard acting as lackeys for some noble house. I wouldn't accept that, even if I had to sell my soul to the devil. After some time, the group had settled into their vehicle and begun their journey. Kazan gazed out the window, watching the scenery pass by. He said with an indifferent expression, "The scenery is a bit dull. Seems a little gloomy, doesn't it?" Hearing this, Revelio asked Kazone in return, "What's this trying to make small talk with me?" Kazone denied it immediately. "No." Seeing this, Revelio decided to change the subject. He brought up Mayor Zabit's speech. Anyway, about Mayor Zabit's speech. Kazan spoke up, his voice full of confusion. "Huh." Revelio heard him. He used a confident tone to probe Kazan. "That was your doing, wasn't it?" Revelio smiled confidently. He speculated, believing that the mayor was trying to seize power. On behalf of the council, backed by the support of the Western family. Kazan didn't answer. He asked Revelio in return, "What makes you think that?" Revelio pointed it out with a teasing tone. He said that the whole justice thing was just a pretext. "What's the matter? That whole justice thing is just an excuse." After that, Revelio began to analyze eloquently and clearly. He suggested that Kazan used this incident to restore the Western family's tarnished reputation. Furthermore, in the upcoming power struggle, the family would have solid support. A very clever move. After explaining, Revelio concluded with certainty, believing it was all Kazone's plan. "Isn't that your plan, Kazone?" Hearing Revelio's words, Kazone just calmly retorted with sarcasm. "Hanging out with the black market merchant guilds wasn't a waste of time, I see." Revelio's expression immediately changed. He put on a pitiful act and said, "Hey, I came from the streets, you know." Revelio seriously reassured Kazone. He said he had been through enough to survive and knew how to read people. "I know, right? I've been through enough to survive. You think I don't know how to judge a person? Don't worry." After that conversation, they both fell silent. Suddenly, an object in Revelio's pocket began to vibrate, drawing his attention. He pulled out a small device, and from it, a voice came out. "Is that all right?" Revelio replied into the device with frustration, saying he had been disrespected far too much. "Don't say another word. I've been looked down on more than enough." The person on the other end heard this, laughed, and tried to mediate. "Don't fight too much, okay? You're friends after all." Kazan immediately retorted, "No, we're not friends." Cajon turned his face away, his voice firm as he said he hadn't agreed yet and still needed to consider the terms. "I haven't agreed. I still need to see the conditions." Boya wasn't angry at all. She laughed cheerfully. She said Cajon had been played and recommended he reconsider. She said her proposal wasn't necessarily a disadvantage for Kazone. "You've been set up," she recommended, followed by, "But you should really think it over. My proposal isn't necessarily harmful to you." Kazon maintained a cold expression and questioned Poya, asking if saying that didn't show too much distrust. As for Poya, she was sitting in her private room sipping a cup of tea. Hearing Kazan, Poya repeated with a hint of doubt, "Distrust, you say?" Kazan used a calm tone to state his judgment that if he were to partner with the merchant guild she runs. "Without permission, my head might be served up to the elders." Boya smiled. She picked up the communication device and replied leisurely, saying, "Kazone seemed to have misunderstood." "It seems you've misunderstood." "Misunderstood?" Cajon asked back, his voice full of confusion. Boya got straight to the point, affirming that she wanted to partner with Kaon, not the Western family. "I want to partner with you, not with the House of Western." After hearing those words, Kajon turned his face toward the communication device. Kazon fell silent, pondering the hidden meaning behind her words. After a moment, Kazon's question came from the device. "Why?" Boya's voice calmly explained that quality goods are always worth investing in. "Of course," Boya stated firmly, "good merchandise is always worth the investment." Boya then added that Revelio also needed true companions. It must also be said that Revelio really does need friends. Kazan grumbled with annoyance. He said that did not please him. "That doesn't sit well with me." Finally, Boya spoke with sincerity, saying that if he needed more trust, he should consider the information she had sent earlier as a gift, so that we'll have a chance to help each other later. In any case, if you need more trust, just consider the information I sent earlier as a gift. There will be many times we need to help each other in the future. Seeing that her message had been fully conveyed, Boya said goodbye to Kazone, telling him to contact her through this device if anything came up. "If you need anything, contact me through this device. I will answer. Goodbye then." Hearing this, Revelio broke into a radiant smile and replied, wishing Poya good luck. "Good luck." Beside them, Kazon looked at the device, showing his displeasure. He remarked that those two had similarly stubborn personalities. Just then, Revelio looked out the window. He happily announced, "We're almost there, huh?" Hearing Revelio, Kazan also looked at the scenery outside the carriage window. In front of them, a massive city wall stood imposingly over the long road. Revelio looked at the city wall and proudly announced, "Welcome to the royal capital Kazone." Time passed. The sky had sunken into darkness. By now, the group had finally reached their destination. This was the stopping point for Kazone and his people, so he and Leo got out of the carriage. Revelio poked his head out and gave Kazan some friendly advice. Kazan calmly glanced at Revelio and replied, "That's not necessary." Revelio didn't seem to mind Kazan's cold attitude and at the same time raised his hand to wave. At the same time, he cheerfully reminded him, "We'll be seeing each other soon anyway, so don't be too sad about it." Seeing this, Kazan cursed in annoyance. "That guy." After Revelio left, Da rode his horse up beside Kazan and respectfully asked for permission. "Then we shall take our leave, young masters of the Duke's house." Hearing Da, Kazone immediately replied with a serious tone, "Thank you very much, Da." Da simply replied calmly, "It was nothing. We'll meet again." After that, Da led the other guards away. Far behind, Kazone and Leo stood silently watching their figures disappear. Kazan calmly thought to himself that they would meet again, but he didn't know when. Suddenly, Leo asked Kazan curiously, "Do you know what that brightly lit tower is?" Kazan looked in the direction Leo pointed and answered, "That's the magic tower." Leo's tone was thoughtful as he repeated, "The magic tower." He then asked if that was where the mages lived. "Is that where the mages live?" Kazan calmly replied, "More or less." Hearing Kazan, Leo exclaimed with sincere admiration that the building looked magnificent. Kazan agreed without emotion. "That's right." Inwardly, however, he scoffed at the comment, thinking those mages must have spent a fortune to build it unlike before. Kazan averted his gaze and lowered his head slightly. A complex emotion welled up inside him. He sighed, thinking that he had only just arrived in the royal capital and was already feeling overwhelmed. Speaking of the magic tower, just arriving in the capital is already staggering. Hearing those words, Leo looked confused. He looked at Kazan's back, but Kazan didn't turn to explain. He just gave a slight smile and muttered to himself, thinking about the royal capital. Kazan recalled some memories from his past life which made him feel troubled. He sighed, thinking that coming to the royal capital felt like returning to a tomb after a long journey. Just as Kazan and Leo set foot in the mansion, someone suddenly appeared behind them. That person greeted them, "So you've arrived." When Leo saw the newcomer, he was startled. His voice trembled as he called out, "Hugo!" Kazone said nothing. He just stared back at the young man sternly. A hidden sense of caution began to rise within him. Kazone couldn't sense any power from the other man. He looked at the young man before him, and he realized. This was Hugo Reston, a rare genius of the Empire. After appearing, Hugo asked calmly, devoid of any emotion. He said, "The two of you must have had a rough journey to the capital. It's been a long road to the capital, my young cousins." Hugo stood opposite Kazone and Leo, calmly voicing his approval. He praised the two of them for traveling such a long way. "You've both had a long journey to the capital. Well done, Kazone and Leo." Hugo suddenly extended a hand toward Kazone and asked. He said, "This is our first time meeting." "Kazone, this is the first time you've met me, isn't it?" Kazone also extended his hand to shake Hugo's, replying politely, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Hugo." Hugo's expression remained cold as he praised Kazone. "If I had known our youngest was this formidable, I would have stopped by." "Much sooner." Kazone laughed, replying in a bright and friendly tone. He said, "You're too kind. You're just as impressive as the rumors say you know." On the surface, things seemed normal, but Leo could sense a powerful confrontation between the two of them. Leo felt wary, wondering to himself if these two would be okay. Just then, a woman stepped out from inside the mansion. She looked at Kazone with a face full of joy and called out, "Kazone, come here, my beloved grandson." Hearing her voice, Kazone looked over. When he recognized the woman, he too called out happily, "Grandma." The woman walked over to Kazone and lovingly stroked his head. Then she asked in a tender voice, "How long has it been? Have you gotten taller again?" Kazone was overjoyed. He smiled and replied, "It's been too long, Grandma." After greeting Kazone, his grandmother turned to Leo with instructions. She welcomed Leo and said she had prepared a warm bath for him to wash up and rest. "Leo, welcome, my dear. I've already prepared a warm bath. Go wash up and get some comfortable rest." Leo also replied respectfully, "Yes, thank you, ma'am." Standing nearby, Kazone suddenly remembered his grandfather's message. He quickly relayed it to his grandmother, saying, "Grandpa has some business to attend to, so he'll be a little late." Grandpa had to take care of something, so he'll be arriving a bit late. Hearing Kazone, his grandmother led him into the house. As they walked, she replied, "I already received word. Let's get you inside. We have to go buy a brooch to wear at the banquet tomorrow, so make sure you get to bed early, okay?" Kazone obediently replied, "Yes, ma'am." A servant standing by respectfully reported that Kazone and Leo's luggage would be brought up as soon as they entered the house. Behind them, Hugo looked at his own hand, thinking in astonishment. He wondered if his mana had been pushed back. "Was my mana repelled?" Hugo replayed the handshake in his mind. His mind was lost in endless thoughts. He thought about how he had clearly unleashed his mana to test his opponent. Hugo had felt a powerful reaction from Kazone. The energy from Kazone had erupted directly confronting Hugo's mana. It was not a pure, peaceful kind of magic. Hugo stood motionless. A sense of unease rose within him. As he tried to understand it, he realized it was a turbulent mana, like raging waves in a furious storm. Suddenly, Hugo remembered what his father had told him about keeping his cousins out of any trouble in the capital. "Watch over them well, Hugo," he pensively repeated his father's warning. "Trouble, huh?" Hugo glanced in the direction Kazone had gone. He silently resolved that he needed to watch Kazone very carefully. He looked at Kazone's smiling face, then became lost in thought, wondering what kind of person Kazone really was. A while later, Kazone was inside the mansion and had finished bathing. He opened the door to his private room. Kazone flopped onto the bed, relaxing his mind after a long day. He recalled the scene that had just happened. Kazone clicked his tongue in annoyance. He thought about how Hugo had suddenly used his mana just to test him. Kazone's gaze grew deeper as his mind raced with calculations. He concluded that Hugo was indeed an unpredictable opponent. Kazone mentally noted that Hugo was somewhat different from what he'd known about the best. However, Kazone found the thought irritating, so he decided to push all the thoughts aside. He told himself, forget it. It had been 55 years since he last returned to this place, a place he considered his own grave. Kazone walked to a table, opened a cabinet, and pulled out a bottle of wine. A determined look crossed Kazone's face as he muttered, "Maybe I'll have a few drinks." That I snuck from the Sixth Prince's carriage. That should hit the spot. Whatever he wanted to do, he did immediately. He thought about the people behind this whole incident. He thought, they deliberately left false evidence as if they wanted to lead me to conclude it was the Third Kingdom's doing. They didn't even bother to hide their intentions. Kazone walked over to his sword and poured a little wine onto it. Miraculously, right after he did that, a voice suddenly echoed in Kazone's mind. "What now, master? This isn't blood." Kazone took a sip of wine and replied to the voice. "You said you needed someone to talk to, and I needed a conversation partner," the sword said nonchalantly. It recognized that this was not a normal situation at all. "It's certainly not normal." Kazone glanced at the sword and confessed in a calm tone. "This place, it feels like my tomb. I hope you understand. This place is like my grave." The sword replied politely, "I know." Hearing that, Kazone was surprised and asked, "But I've never told you that." The sword stated the truth plainly. "I read your memories." Kazone sat down on the bed and let out a sigh. "A demon's sword indeed," he remarked. The sword immediately retorted in annoyance. "I am not a demon sword." Kazone paid no mind to its feelings and just continued with his story. He said that Thenlu Hong had told him it was the very sword he had used in his previous life. The sword also seemed quite confused upon hearing this. "You are the sword I used in my past life." Kazone's entire body trembled. He let out an unreadable smile, then said in a meaningful tone, "Kazone, pour a little more of that wine." Outside the mansion, darkness enveloped everything in the quiet space. An eerie sense of peace hinted at the great changes about to come. The next morning, brilliant sunlight shone across the sky. Down on the ground, the bustling sounds of vendors rang out, heralding a lively new day. "Come get your fresh goods right here. Come see the play beloved by the Six Princes." Hugo led Kazone and Leo out for a stroll to enjoy the fresh air, the calls of the street vendors constantly echoing. Reaching their ears, they also saw artists drawing portraits on the spot. Suddenly, Kazone gave Leo a sharp look and scolded him. "Hey, stop gawking at everything. You're not some country bumpkin." Hearing that, Leo looked pitiful and replied weakly, "What's wrong with looking?" Just then, Hugo turned around and lectured Leo seriously, reminding him that as a member of the family, he must maintain proper etiquette. "That's right. Leo, as a member of the family, you should maintain your decorum." Leo immediately froze like a mouse seeing a cat and obeyed. "Yes, brother." After lecturing Leo, Hugo turned to Kazone to instruct him, reminding him that he also had to be respectful when they were outside. Kazone also played along, pretending to reprimand. "That's right, Kazone, you must also show me respect when we're outside." "Exactly." Hugo continued his lecture seriously. "When it's just the two of us, it doesn't matter. But when we're out, you must consider the family's dignity and maintain proper etiquette. When it's just the two of you, anything goes. But out in public, you must think of the family's dignity and maintain etiquette." Hearing that, Kazone immediately questioned Hugo, asking if he could speak more casually when they were alone in the future. "So does that mean I can speak more casually when I'm alone with you from now on?" But Hugo didn't answer Kazone. He turned his head in another direction, pointed, and said, "It looks like the shop we're heading to is just up ahead." Seeing this, Kazone immediately felt a surge of contempt and silently cursed Hugo. He thought about how skilled Hugo was at changing the subject. Seeing Hugo walk off, Kazone grew angry and complained. He was annoyed that Hugo hadn't bothered to answer him, but there was nothing Kazone could do. "Hugo," He had no choice but to follow him. Suddenly, Kazone spotted an old sign by the roadside. He pointed towards it and called out to Hugo, "Brother, can we stop by here for a moment?" Hugo turned back to look, sizing up the shop. It was a place that specialized in making clothes for the older generation. He asked Kazone if he liked it. "This place specializes in clothes for older folks. You like it." Leo, who had followed them, added, "The shop looks a bit old-fashioned, doesn't it?" Hearing that, Kazone put an arm around Leo's shoulder and said, "Style is cyclical. Fashion always comes back around, brother." Leo, half believing, replied, "Is that so? Really?" Kazone paid no mind to Leo's attitude. He pushed him inside while judgingly remarking, "What do you know about fashion anyway?" Leo didn't back down, retorting, "It's not that I don't know anything." Hugo just stood to the side watching his two younger brothers banter without saying a word. After that, Hugo followed Kazone and Leo inside. Seeing customers, the shop owner immediately gave them a warm welcome, expressing his surprise at seeing such young nobles. "Welcome. It is rare for young nobles such as yourselves to frequent our shop." He was an elderly man, and he expressed himself with a very gentle demeanor. He said, "I'm not very skilled at tailoring clothes in the styles of the youth. Is that all right with you all?" "To be honest, I'm not good at tailoring to a young person's taste." The shop owner clasped his hands behind his back. He said that if they trusted him, he would do his utmost to serve them. "But if you will place your trust in me, I will pour all my effort into it. May I ask which one of you would like something made?" Kazone stared at the man before him, utterly astonished. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Hearing the shop owner's question, Kazone was still in a daze. He only managed to let out an, "Ah." A memory suddenly flooded his mind. "Sir Kazone, how many times have I told you?" In the memory, Kazone only saw a young boy holding a piece of clothing, grumbling in frustration. The boy said he was going mad because fixing the garment took so much effort. "I'm going to lose my mind. Do you have any idea how much work it is to fix this?" Across from the boy was a young man. Hearing the boy speak, he rubbed his head and gave a sheepish laugh. He apologized, saying that it was because the boy's skills were so good that he could fight without any worries. "Sorry about that. Because you're so skilled, I can fight with peace of mind." Hearing those sincere words, the boy seemed to get embarrassed. He stopped complaining and asked about the deadline for the repairs. "As long as it's finished by next week, it'll be fine, right?" Then the boy turned to go back inside, muttering and complaining as he walked. "And I thought I'd have some free time today." Back in the present, Kazone had come to his senses. He followed the shop owner to get his measurements taken. As he took my measurements, the shopkeeper explained, "Since these are for Duke Halo's grandson, I have to give it my all." Hearing that, I was stunned and asked if he recognized my family. "You recognize our family?" The shopkeeper answered calmly, "Of course. Who wouldn't recognize the Duke's family crest? And, besides, this was the shop of Sir Kajon, a friend of the Duke's." I wondered and asked if the shopkeeper still remembered Kajon. "You still remember Sir Kajon?" The shopkeeper was very moved. He opened up, saying that while others might not have known to him, Kajon was an incredibly warm person. Of course, I don't know about others, but to me, he was such a warm person. Perhaps feeling he had said too much, the shopkeeper looked apologetic, thinking that Kajon probably didn't even know his name. "It's not like he wouldn't even know my name." I didn't answer. I just looked at the shopkeeper and fell into a thoughtful silence. I remembered Kajon, his head bowed, his eyes filled with sadness at the memory. He had been in and out of this shop for years, yet he always just called the shopkeeper Kid. I sank into a deep melancholy, reflecting on everything that had happened. I realized that I had been cherished and remembered by someone. I understood now. This was that special feeling of being forever remembered by another person. Immediately, I lifted my head. I asked the shopkeeper for his name. "Excuse me, sir, what is your name?" The shopkeeper was surprised by the question. He repeated, "My name." Then a radiant, joyful smile spread across his face. In that smile, I could almost see the image of the young tailor boy from all those years ago, and I heard his voice answer me, "My name is Lewin." At that same moment, the name Lewin was spoken by the older man standing right in front of me, confirming that very fact. Just as the air settled into a peaceful calm after that emotional moment, a young woman burst into the shop. She had urgent news. Sir, have you heard? Have you? It's about Sir Kajon's enemy." The young woman spoke in a rush, explaining that Duke Halo's grandson, that is Duke Western, is in the royal capital. Duke Western, the grandson of Duke Halo, is here in the royal capital." Then she saw who was in the shop. Her voice grew softer and trailed off into silence as she realized the very person she was talking about was standing right there. The young woman awkwardly pointed towards me, Hugo, and Leo. She stammered, "Duke Western." Meanwhile, I heard what she'd said. I was completely bewildered. Halo is my enemy.